I want to welcome all of you to the August 22nd, 2017 meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, and thank all who have joined us this morning. We've got a pretty full agenda both this morning and this afternoon, and again tomorrow afternoon as well, but we're certainly delighted you can join with us, and we'll get started here and get into the heart of the agenda in just a moment after a few announcements. But with that being said, I would ask Flo Evans, our clerk, to please call the roll and then make a few brief announcements, and then we'll get started.
Good morning. Supervisor Cerna?
Here.
Kennedy? Here. Peters?
Here.
Frost?
Here.
And Natoli?
Here.
And you have a quorum. This meeting of the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T U-verse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and is webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will be repeated Friday, August 25th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any local library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address the board may fill out a speaker slip and hand it to staff. When the chair calls your name, please come to the podium. Also, please silence your electronic devices at this time.
Okay, thank you. And with those announcements, then I'd ask Supervisor Kennedy if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that then, let's go to any items on the consent calendar that would be continued or dropped. Ms. Evans?
Okay, I actually don't have any notes for you for once, so the floor is yours.
Supervisor Natoli, if
Yes.
I could, I do have one item I would like to ask the board. It's item number 39. It's, Flo, can you read that into the record?
Absolutely. Item 39, adopt resolution authorizing the Director of Water Resources to execute a cost-share agreement with the City of Sacramento to jointly participate in the site's project authority.
Members of the board, there's some questions that have come up from briefings from yesterday and this morning that we need some additional time. We would like to have this item continued till 2 p.m.
Okay. All right. And I think another item, 35, I know we do have a number of folks that have indicated interest in speaking to it, and that would be item 35. So if you read that, and then we'll put that over till 2 o'clock, I believe, as well. So.
Okay. Item 35, adopt resolution authorizing the Director of Water Resources to execute the Consumnes Subbasin Sustainable Groundwater Management Act Working Group Framework Agreement.
Okay. And there has been some written correspondence, and I know both Kerry Schmitz and Michael Peters from the Department of Water Resources are here this morning. There was correspondence as recently as late last night. I think County Council has that. I would hope that Water Resources has that as well, and we'll have, I'm sure, a good conversation about that this afternoon. But so items 35 and 39 will be held over until 2 o'clock for this afternoon session. All right. If there's nothing else, let me turn to my colleagues. Mr. Cerna, any items you wish to
Nothing, Mr.
call
Chair.
out? Okay. Mr. Kennedy? Ms. Peters? Yes.
Yes, I'd like the record to reflect that I'm recusing on items 2, 5, 6, and 8 due to a potential business conflict.
Okay. Items 2, 5, 6, and 8. All right. Any other items you want to speak to on the agenda? Okay. Ms. Frost?
No.
Okay. I did want to ask a question on item 19, if you could, so if we could call that item out.
Okay, item 19, authority to apply for $150,000 of No Place Like Home program technical assistance funding.
Okay. In this item, we're for No Place Like Home. We already have a steering committee, and apparently are proposing to do a plan as well. I know we've had some correspondence from at least one community group, certainly urging the county to do a plan. I don't know that it necessarily aligns exactly with this item as it relates to the homeless issue, and we'll certainly have a lot of conversation about this tomorrow and during final budget. But I guess the question I have is that I think a correspondence was shared with you, at least as it relates to community discussion that actually will occur tomorrow night. But as it relates to representation on the committee, and so I guess the question I had for you or Mr. Lake would be that the current makeup, which is on the attachment, and maybe call that out. When there's any ability to, I trust that there is, we already have an advisory committee, a steering committee, and a program development work group. Is the ability to expand the membership there to maybe include some of the suggested groups, or what sort of conversation could be had relative to that issue?
Yes, Mr. Tully, Paul Lake, Social Services Agency. The steering committee that we've identified in this report is for the overall No Place Like Home effort. So it's not only the plan, but the future applications. With regard to putting the plan together, we could certainly make sure that we bring all of those folks that are suggested in the letter into our development of that plan, and have them weigh in on the final drafts and you know, bring issues forward so that we can make sure we consider those, and our consultant will work with them. So we can certainly expand that group.
Okay, because the specific request came in from the area congregations together, but it was suggesting that in preparing a plan, not necessarily on this item, although this has, I think, a strong relationship to that already SHRA and certainly Department of Human Assistance and others are represented, some from the faith community, but they suggested that Sacramento Steps Forward, the Housing Alliance, and maybe a representative from one of the other cities beyond the city of Sacramento be represented as well. So I think that there's probably some room. Again, you don't want to have a committee that's unmanageable as it relates to membership, but I think it would be worth our consideration to look at the construct of those committees. And what would you suggest? You actually have 3 committees in the attachment that was to our staff report. Which committee would be the one that would be appropriate if you were developing a plan? You've got an advisory committee, a steering committee, and a program development work group.
Well, I think with regard to developing the plan, we can combine that advisory committee and the steering committee and help us put that together. And that's going to cover a lot of those folks, and then we'll just broaden that circle to add others to that as well. Okay,
because I know you have 2 supervisors' offices. I think District 1 and District 2 both have your chiefs of staff on, at least on the steering committee for the No Place Like Home.
That is correct. I mean,
okay. So, okay.
So what we can do is we can look into the request, what we need to do. We have the administrative authority to expand this, and we'll see who else we need to include.
Okay. And I know that in the program development work group, you do have the cities, Elk Grove, Folsom, and Citrus Heights, Galt, all are represented on that. And so, again, I don't know what sort of merging and how those have different roles as you develop a plan. And so I guess maybe it's already covered to some extent, but you got 3 distinct bodies here that I don't know if they all converge at once or they have different roles as in going forward. And this was already in place, as I understand it. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's a lot of overlap in those groups. The work group really kind of gets the nuts and bolts thinking together, and then we bring it up to the steering committee, which is really primarily your advisory bodies and a few others that are helping us work on the entire No Place Like Home strategy.
Okay. One other question I have, though, is so we're making the application for this technical assistance. The timeline is by early part of next year to actually have a plan, I guess, before the board for consideration. When do we anticipate we'd know about the technical assistance funding when it would become available? I mean, is it competitive? Is it something that we have a pretty good idea we're going to receive, or what?
We should receive notice that we've been awarded that technical assistance money in short order once we apply for it. It's really a pro forma application. They're providing that technical assistance funding to all counties to help develop their plan and their No Place Like Home strategy.
Okay, so it's just, is the amount in question, or just is the amount relative to the size of the county? I trust if you're a smaller county, you're not, okay. So we should have the money fairly quickly, and the planning effort will then be underway. Are we going to employ consultants to assist in this regard, or what?
Yes, we're going to be putting out a call to hire a consultant to come in and help lead the effort to put that plan together. We'll come back to the board with the recommended contractor.
Okay. How soon do you think we'll see that then, in light of what you just said?
I would estimate 6 to 8 weeks, depending on
Okay.
the RFP process and who we get.
And Supervisor Natoli, what we plan on doing is later on today or tomorrow morning is to get a little news story that details out the questions you're asking, so that if folks are interested in the work that we're doing, that there's a spot in our webpage they can go to and see what kind of work we're doing, what are the next steps, what are the committees, and work we have to do for the next couple of months. on
Okay.
this.
And again, I don't want to take any more time this morning, but there's so many moving parts to the discussions that certainly this board and, you know, the broader community in many different contexts is having regarding addressing, you know, issues of homeless or related to homelessness. And I think this is an opportunity, certainly with regards to, you know, efforts that do bridge the entirety of the county and certainly involve many different groups and a plan that hopefully will provide some substance and foundation for the work that, you know, will follow. I just wanted to be sure that, you know, this is on a consent calendar, just like kind of a, you know, it's a non-controversial item, but it get highlighted in a way that, you know, recognizing that we've got a lot of things in the mix here, and I know you're getting back to this board over the course of the next few weeks on a couple of other matters related to homelessness with a report back and so forth, and so I just want to be sure this got entered into the mix. So, okay, fine. Any other questions or comments on that? Oh, Mr. Cerna, go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nav, you mentioned that we're going to have a press release or a news story of some sort on our website about all of this. I'm hoping that, like some of the other information that we've recently shared on our website about the initiatives that this board adopted this past spring and funded in June, will speak to the issue specifically of capacity, added capacity. What, you know, I know at this point it can only be an estimate in terms of what No Place Like Home offers, but I can tell you that I'm being inundated with questions from constituents about that specific angle of what we're attempting to do to set policy and appropriate resources to add capacity, not just to the things that are in the direct control of the county, but in addition to all the network of other nonprofit agencies that are part of that equation. So I think as we move forward, anytime we're going to publicly explain or provide information on the subject of homelessness and what this organization is doing to grapple with it, the kind of the sub-issue of capacity needs to be kind of at the forefront of what we're doing.
Okay, understood.
Thanks.
Okay. And I just also wanted to, on one other item, if I could, before we take the consent calendar up, and I don't have any speakers on the consent calendar, so if anyone wishes to address the consent calendar, I have speakers on off agenda and certainly some presentations. Just on item 29, if you could call that very quickly.
Item 29 is the interim North Service Area Water Transmission Main Installation and Water Treatment Plant Facilities Improvement Final Contract Acceptance.
And I just wanted to offer certainly a word of thanks to all the folks that have worked on this. Actually, the title is a little deceiving. It says North Service Area, so you think it's somewhere northern part of the county. Actually, it's in the Vineyard area and serving the Anatolia and Rancho Cordova communities and Mather. And I know that certainly you, Mr. Gill, I think Mr. Linder was involved, certainly Mr. Peterson and Carrie Schmitz were involved in this. At the time, we were attempting to make this connection between our water treatment facility to bring surface water to those areas. We utilize a well field in that portion of the county. This connection, you know, the funding for it was certainly difficult to pin down, and again, I want to give credit to our water resources staff and to the partners because we were trying to do this right in the midst of the recession, and it took a while, but I think it provides you know, that conjunctive use source for newly developing areas as well as established communities, and I want to just thank all the staff that worked on it. Certainly, Michael, thank you, because I know we had some tough meetings around this, and you and your staff put your heads together from a finance standpoint, but certainly from a logistics standpoint, and when development was at its lowest point, there wasn't a lot of fee revenue available to accomplishment, and if I recall, it was a multi-million-dollar project. I think the actual construction was more on a $7.5 million, but I think the overall was probably closer to $10 million. And it does really complete a project that's very, very important to water supply, and actually makes real the foundational element we have in the general plan and in our water planning to use conjunctive use for newly developing areas in the county. So I want to thank you for your efforts. And
You're welcome.
thanks. Okay. That's all I had. All right. If there's no other items on the consent calendar acknowledging the items on which Ms. Peters has recused herself, and also the two items that were held over till this afternoon, I'll take a motion then if it's in order. Okay, I have a motion. Chair would second it. Moved and seconded then to approve the consent calendar, noting the items that have been called out. Please vote.
Unanimous vote, and I will just reiterate that Supervisor Susan Peters recused from items 2, 5, 6, and 8, and we're holding 35 and 39 until 2 p.m.
Very good. Okay.
2:15. Okay, so for item 45 is the presentation of resolution proclaiming September 2017 as Alcohol and Drug Recovery Month in the Sacramento County. Join the Voices for Recovery, strengthen families and communities.
Okay, I see Dr. Heller coming down, and I don't know, Sheriff, if you want to make some introductory comments. I have board resolutions that were just approved a moment ago to present to you and representatives from our Alcohol Drug Advisory Board, but you may want to, and I know last year you had a special presentation for us. I don't know what you have planned for today, but I'll come down and present these to you in a moment. So.
Thank you. Just a few brief remarks. Good morning, members of the board.
And Chief Seal as well. Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah. Thank you. I have Chief Seal beside me, and every time we do this, I go to make this remark about how we stand shoulder to shoulder, and then I look at him and it just isn't true. But
shoulder to elbow.
But right, shoulder to elbow. Right. I like that. I'm going to remember that one for next time. Thank you. I've been before you many times this year to talk about drug and alcohol issues, and sometimes we talk about prevention, and sometimes we talk about funding streams and legalities and so forth. Today is a day to celebrate recovery. We know that treatment works. You're going to hear the stories of people who've succeeded in treatment. I want to begin by thanking the board for additional funding provided in this year's budget, some $500,000 in CalWORKS funding and some $500,000 in realignment money, and to report to you that this has resulted in a 32% decrease in the number of clients placed on the waiting list for residential treatment. And what's even probably more important, a 63% decrease in the number of days that people are on a waiting list before they are entering residential treatment, down from 38 days of waiting to 14 days. And I'm sure when you hear the stories of people who've recovered, they'll say, there comes a moment when you're ready. And when you're ready, you need to go. Being on a waiting list doesn't help. So that's a fairly spectacular improvement in a short time. And the investment you made is really mattering. There are many different treatment approaches. You'll hear today from about medication-assisted treatment and counseling and so forth. What we've learned from the research and from our own experience here in Sacramento County is that it's the combination that matters. Medication-assisted treatment works better when combined with cognitive behavioral treatment, such as counseling. Treatments like intensive outpatient treatment and residential treatment are much more likely to be effective when combined with supportive services such as case management, community support groups, help finding out where to get help when you need it, overcoming barriers such as daycare and transportation, helping people who don't have a supportive network of sober family and friends, to teach them things like how to party without using. Those are important skills that go beyond the brain science and the medical treatment. I just want to say in closing, I know that Chief Seal is going to talk about the overlap with the criminal justice population and how much that matters to the success of the probation program. But I just want to briefly mention how much treatment and recovery matters to the child welfare population as well. We know, for example, that our dependency drug court, the reunification rate for families who participate in that court, who get treatment and counseling, and we have a 45% reunification rate for those families who participate as compared to a 17% reunification rate for families who do not participate. And if you look at the ones who get get through the whole program, who graduate from dependency drug program, we have 62% of them where the children are reunited with their parents. Recovery works, treatment works, especially when there's a motivation like retaining custody of your children. We also know that children spend significantly less time in out-of-home care and foster care, on average 11 months for the families that participate in drug treatment, as opposed to 20 months for those who don't. So those are fairly high impact results. We know that recovery is difficult. We know that recovery works. Today, Chief Seal is going to make a few opening remarks. We're going to hear from Mary Pruitt, who is a I don't know, should we refer to her as a graduate? She's a recovering person who's going to tell you her story and has given back, because she's now the executive director of the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence here in Sacramento. So this is a pattern you'll hear about over and over. People who know what made recovery work because they went through it, and then they're giving back to help others share that same story. We had hoped to have another speaker here today who we wanted to have one whose drug of choice was meth and one whose drug of choice was opiates. And the second speaker is not able to be here because he's ill. But I know that Mr. Natoli is going to present the resolution to Craig Corey, representing the treatment professionals in our county, and he has a pretty good story to tell too. So maybe he'll make a few remarks in the absence of this other provider. Thank you so much for the opportunity to remind you and to remind the members of the public that investing in drug and alcohol recovery is a really, really important and worthwhile investment. Chief Seal?
Thanks, Sherry. Morning, Lee.
Thank you very much. Lee Seal with the Sacramento County Probation Department. Thank you, Dr. Heller, for the invitation to participate in this, and thank you to all the board members for recognizing this important month. I'll keep my comments very brief, simply to join in what Dr. Heller shared with all of us this morning. Obviously, those of us in the criminal justice system, we're just a subset of the entire county in terms of the needs for substance abuse treatment and related services. But for us, the stakes are very high. Of course, we see those stakes both in terms of victimization, the impacts to families and communities, but also in a real sense into the county budget at a time when all of us want to make sure that those scarce resources are available for all the kinds of social service services that we want to support as well. So measured against those very high stakes, you will not find a bigger supporter and proponent of the effectiveness of treatment services than we are in the probation department. As you all know, we've had one of the longest running drug courts in the entire state, over 2 decades strong, and it continues to serve the residents of this county very well. I also observe and remind the public behind us that this board supported some important initiatives in my department this summer as well, which will expand our ability to assess, in particular, adults, and expand some of those treatment services to them as well. And again, we're confident with the track record we have with the partnership and with the partnership of so many community providers that we're going to be successful in those efforts. So I want to thank the board for its ongoing support of all of that. And with that, I will myself take the honor of introducing Ms. Pruitt. Come on down. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mary Pruitt. I'm a 61-year-old recovering meth addict. Before getting addicted to meth, I was a successful person. I went to college. I got into management with stores like Mervyn's, Kohl's, those kind of places. Was doing really well, and after a second divorce, fell into a deep depression, and at age 38, I was introduced to meth. It took away my heartache, it took away my disappointments, and I was off and running. I continued to run those stores for a while until it didn't work anymore. I ended up losing my career of 23 years. I lost my house, I lost my family, I lost my car. I ended up moving back in with my parents to try to help get myself together. And then at age 44, for the first time, I got arrested and was offered Prop 36. Prop 36 had just started a few months before that. So in October of 2001, I was arrested, went before a judge, didn't know what to expect, and they offered treatment. I didn't know treatment was even available. I didn't know that I was in trouble with addiction until I got arrested and was told I had to stop. I accepted Prop 36. I went into outpatient treatment for a couple of months, could not stay clean and sober. I ended up going into residential program for 90 days at Cornerstone. When I came out of there, I had to continue with my Prop 36 for the next year. So I stayed in outpatient treatment for about a year. At the end of that, I didn't know what I was going to do about working again, and a suggestion was made from one of the counselors at the recovery home that maybe getting into the field might be a place to start. So I signed up for school. I was finishing my probation, and a few months later, I was able to get off of probation, start working part-time back at that recovery home. And I went from being an on-call counselor, learning how to do all of that, to ended up being the program manager there. Then after being there for about 6 years, I was recruited back to the outpatient that I had started at, which is National Council of Alcohol and Drug Dependence. That has been a part of my life this whole 15 and a half years. Along the way, not only did I continue to work in the field and to give back, I was asked by Elizabeth Contreras of the county, who does a lot of the trainings, to come and speak to some of the classes that she, for counselors was teaching. She also is a teacher over at Sac State. I go back there once a quarter to speak to the master's students about addiction, and I tell my story and how the people that they're going to start to work with are folks like myself. So I've continued to do that over the last 15 years. Along the way, treatment has helped. I would not be clean and sober right now if it hadn't have been for the arrest. Probation told me, yep, we're going to help you get there. Judge Ransom, when I went to court, they clapped every time I walked in the door and was still clean and sober, which was amazing. 44-year-old person, and it's like, I'd been on my own, I'd run stores, I didn't have anybody telling me what to do, and all of a sudden I didn't know what to do. And so Judge Ransom kept me in line, kept me going forward. I was offered all kinds of trainings along the way. And today, it's 15 and a half years later, I went from being an on-call counselor to now the executive director of the place that I started my treatment at, which is, I still can't believe it. That happened in December of last year. And now I get to give back even more. I get to come from a place of a client or an addict that's just out there running the streets, really doesn't know what to do, to being able to help those same people. I know all the names of my clients. We have about 300 clients there. I greet them. I do crisis interventions when I need to. I'm there to welcome them through that front door. And, I thank you all for continuing to fund our treatment centers, because without that, we'd have a lot of suffering people out there. We have to continue to do that. And I just want to thank you all for being there for me when I really needed it. And today, I'm very thankful and grateful. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Very powerful story. Thank you, Mary, for sharing. Supervisor Cerny, you get a comment?
Thank you. I just wanted to express my thanks personally to you for obviously making some pivotal decisions in your life that led you to a point where you can stand before the Board of Supervisors and look back with all of us here in the room and watch on TV about an honest assessment of addiction and recovery. I think the folks that are suffering out there need to hear these success stories, because oftentimes, we've been this board has been working very, very intently over the last several years on the issue of homelessness. And I think we can all agree that the intersection of addiction and homelessness is one that is somewhat profound, not just in this community, but across all communities. And I think the more and more we can broadcast and articulate the success stories like the one that we just heard, I think that can inspire the kind of hope, regardless of how dire the circumstance might be, for someone to extricate themselves from addiction. And so I just think it's absolutely critical that that we do that. And I know Mr. Gill's not here, but I'm looking to you, Ms. Newton, that these success stories, I think, just as much as the policies and the resource application that this board decides when it comes to services like this, need to be somehow packaged appropriately and you know, put on display for people to understand and read, and maybe that's going to be someone's inspiration. Put that up on our webpage. Put it out in our newsletters from our individual districts, because again, I think dealing with the complexities, especially of homelessness, and here in Sacramento, methamphetamine in particular, as I've said ad nauseum, is a huge contributing factor to that circumstance of homelessness. It sounds to me like you were only one step away from that yourself if you didn't have your parents to fall back on at some point in your life. So I think we need to kind of carefully collect these testimonials and use them to give people as much hope as we can, in addition to all the other kind of technical activity that goes on behind the scenes in terms of, you know, seeking grant monies or shaping policy or setting budgets. These are equally important. So again, thank you for your great words this morning, and hopefully someone's watching that is suffering and may think twice this morning about what they need to do to change their life. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. Yes, and certainly, Mary, you're living, breathing testament to folks. Certainly the assistance you receive, but obviously having the will and the drive within yourself to make that change. So I know we have some other providers, and I'm sorry I'll make a presentation to Mr. Corey in a moment, but there are others. I did have a person sign up to speak, Inez Whitlow, who has the Chicks in Crisis program down in Elk Grove. Inez, did you want to speak this morning?
Oh, you know, I always like to speak.
Well, come on down, and then we invite Mr. Corey. Is there anybody else that didn't sign up there? I see some other providers in the audience as well, but Inez, you're welcome to come to the podium. And anyone who didn't sign up who thought they might want to speak on this item certainly can invite them, and then we'll do the presentation and invite Mr. Corey to make some comments as well. So, good morning, Inez.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. It's such an important issue. You know, I work with the pregnant and parenting teens and women who are using methamphetamines, opiates, and our job is to get in first hand when we find out they're pregnant and they're using. How do we get them services? We work real closely with VOA and the other treatment, Sacramento County. We do have some really great programs out there. I would say 9 out of 10 of the babies that are born within our program are addicted to meth or opiates. We have a huge issue with a lot of the homeless women along the Parkway up here. We work with Dignity Health, UC Davis. When they come across a pregnant or parenting woman out on the river, we're their call. We'll go out and we'll do our own triage. We'll bring clothes, healthy food, hygiene product. I'm able to sit down with them and talk to them. What's your drug of choice? How long have you been using? What do we need to do to get you off the streets? It's very intensive. I don't think a lot of people really realize the tragic situations that we have out there and how readily available methamphetamine and opiates are. It's something that we definitely need to continue to put a spotlight on. Our whole goal is if you're using, we want to help you to get into a rehab, but we also want to make sure we don't have your baby go to foster care. We already know the deal with foster care. If you test positive at the hospital, they've already got CPS on their way in. So if these women do not have a parenting plan, those children automatically roll into foster care. And foster care is one of our worst daycare centers I can tell you we have in this mess. And these poor kids, they don't deserve to be in foster care. You know, they deserve to have a home, loving parents. How do we help them? Some of our parents want to be helped, and there's some that don't. We just recently had a young lady deliver up here off of the river. She's under the bridge, Garden Highway and I-5. And we tried diligently to get her over here with VOA, and she refused to leave because she didn't want to leave her dog, her friends, and her habit. And that baby automatically went into the system. Cute little guy. And then what we need to really focus on is the health of these children later as they start growing up. We don't see the cognitive problems we're having as an infant. We see that when they become 11, 12, 13 years old. And we wonder why these kids are ADHD. They have all these behavioral issues. Well, if you back it up, you're going to see that their mom was a tox-positive mom and used methamphetamines through their entire pregnancy. So, you know, we're out here right now. We're trying so hard. We work with over 350 clients a month. I'm not shy to talk. I'm very vocal. And, you know, we supply the diapers, wipes, formula, and baby clothes. I tell them I don't care where you're coming from or what you did. You're pregnant, so obviously, you know, your baby was the fastest swimmer. Let's not make him the biggest loser. Let's get this under control. And, you know, and we laugh about it because I find that they're already have a lot of trauma and a lot of other issues. And if you can laugh, you're going to break that, you know, hesitation, and then they start talking. And like I said, I've been doing this over 20 years, and I don't know who's down here, but we used to have a big problem over here off of B Street. They called it Crack Alley. Remember that? And you guys shut that off. I used to roll in there with my baby supplies, my pregnancy kits, and say, let's get in the car. You need a doctor. You need a doctor. I will make their appointments, and I take them. But we have an issue, and it's not going away. It's just getting worse. And I think with social media and the fact that people are seeing it firsthand, it's in their face, we're starting to talk more about it. So I would really like to keep the conversation going. I'd really like to see us be more diligent when we find out that they're pregnant and they're using. How do we get in there before those babies roll into foster care? And that's where I think all of us can really work together and make that happen. So I'm all for you guys continuing that fight, and I appreciate you guys giving me the time to come on out and talk about it. So
thanks, Inez. Thanks for your work. Again, I know you've made this your life's passion, your life's work for many, many years, and help save a lot of lives and make lives better. So appreciate what you do. So
thank you.
And your garden looks pretty good. You got a pretty good sized pumpkin going out there.
Well, do you know how much you win with those pumpkins? Let me tell you that story. So, you know, we don't get a lot of funding because, again, people don't like to fund programs like mine. Well, first off, why are you pregnant and having a baby when you can't take care of yourself? So I do a lot of my own fundraising. So last year I was at the Giant Pumpkin Festival, and I was out there 3 days, made $800, was tired as can be, and I'm dragging my wagon to the Suburban, throwing the stuff in, and this old fella, he's got this big pumpkin on a pallet, putting it up there, and had a blue ribbon. I was like, right on, buddy, good job, you know, that's cool. I said, so what, do you just win that ribbon? And he chuckled at me, and he goes, and just picked up a $16,000 check. I threw those pumpkin pies and cookies down and chased him like, tell me how you do that. So he told me his little secrets, and I started on the garden last year, so we rototilled, got my soil, did my thing, got my pumpkin seeds, so they're actually patented, and I planted them, so I have 5 of them growing out there, so I went first, second, third, and I'm going to take it all. And it's so fun because the young kids who come out to our garden, they're all a part of it, and they just get to see the growth of this. So, you know, hope on October 6th and 7th, we're up there with that big ribbon and taking home $16,000 so we can pour that back into the program. So, you know, it takes money to do what we do, and again, we gave out over 22,000 diapers last year, and that's a lot of diapers for homeless babies. And, you know, speaking of Little Crack Alley, one of the babies in there about 17, 18 years ago had maggots in his diaper because the mom was shaking her diapers out and reusing them. And that's the point when I just said, that's enough. I gotta I don't care what people say. These babies need fresh diapers, and they need formula that's not diluted, and they need medical care. So I appreciate you guys always supporting me, and let's go win that pumpkin contest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ines.
Hold on.
Yeah, Phil wanted to say something, yes.
So first of all, I'm very familiar with the program that you run, programs, plural, that you run. I'm very thankful for all you're doing. Is there a specific program that is dedicated to the Parkway? I mean, you've mentioned a couple of anecdotes already about incidents on the Parkway.
Well, you got UC Davis, and you have Dignity Health, that you have some doctors. They're kind of like Doctors Beyond Borders, and they've taken it upon themselves. So I've always complained and talked about where our problem areas are, so I'm glad people are starting to listen. But I just took that upon myself, seeing the problem, and because again, 20 years ago, that's when we had the problem where they'd have a baby and put it in a garbage can and leave it.
No, I am somewhat familiar with the particular challenge of pregnancies on the Parkway. I've seen them myself, and whether it be during the point-in-time counts in the past, or as recently as the high water this past winter. So what I'd like you to do, if you're willing, is please make an appointment with my office, because I'd like to sit down and talk to you in greater depth about how we might be able to work together more closely, find you some resources for developing something maybe a little more structured around the Parkway specifically.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thanks, Ines.
Okay, you guys have a great day.
You too. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your good work. Okay, anyone else want to address the item? Otherwise, I'm going to invite Mr. Corey to come up, and if you want to make some comments, and I come down and make a presentation to you on behalf of the Alcohol and Drug Advisory Commission, and certainly invite Dr. Heller and Chief Seal as well. So, I don't know, Mr. Corey, do you want to come up? Yeah, come on, and I'll let you make some comments, and I'll come on down and make a presentation to you. So I didn't know if you wanted to offer some comments first, so. Yeah. Sure.
This one. Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for allowing me to speak and be here today. It's a privilege and an honor. My name's Craig Corey, last name spelled K-O-U-R-Y, which backwards is why are you okay? And I always say because of treatment and recovery. That's my answer. I had obviously up a lot of nights to figure that one out. Yeah, they asked me to comment a little bit. I mean, I came through a Sac County treatment program, River City Recovery Center, back in 2000. My history before that was, my story is very similar to Mary's. I had always worked. I went into the theatrical lighting field and being a stagehand when I was 18. I was married to my high school sweetheart. I felt like I was on top of the world. We both made over 6 figures, cars, boats, all that stuff, which is what I thought was important. I was traveling with the Rolling Stones. I was traveling with the Grateful Dead. I used to say I get paid to go to the biggest party every night, which I thought was great at the time. But as you can imagine, someone with an addictive behavior or addictive personality like mine, that was a very treacherous place for me to be, because you're up 24 hours. And like Mary said, I didn't realize I had a problem because the culture that I was in supported using. I was a meth addict. I started with cocaine, and then when I found meth, I was like, aha, here we go. This is what I've been looking for. This is all day, all night. My family did an intervention for me in 1998. They had my whole family there, my 85-year-old grandma. Everybody read me stories. They asked me to go to treatment. And I told them no. I walked out. I picked meth and alcohol over my family. At that point, my wife came home with my mom. She grabbed her clothes and they left. And on the way out, they said, "We hope you're happy with your decision." One side of my brain said, there go the two most important people in my life. The addictive side of my brain said, good, they're gone. Now I can do what I need to do. 5 months later, a sheriff showed up at my door. She applied for divorce. I thought it was fake. So I continued to throw darts. Important. And sheriff showed up at my door and said, you have to leave. The court order went through. She was standing behind him and said, everything that's in this house now belongs to your wife. Everything that's here belongs to your wife. And at that point, I was homeless. My mom was at work. I went and moved into her garage. She came home to park her car in the garage, and I'd set up a little bed in there and spliced into her cable and her TV and her phone. She's like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I don't have any place to go." If I wouldn't have had her, I would have been on the streets too right then. I eventually made it to treatment 2 years later after getting in trouble and arrested. First time ever being in trouble. And my mom and my uncle took me to this place in the morning. They said, "You're going to this place at 8:30 this morning, and this is what it is." And so I did. And I went to River City Recovery out in Harold. And I was also working for the county. I got a job with Parks and Rec. And during that time, I was in charge of the work project bus. And I got to see the homeless population, what the Rangers went through down at the river, and all that stuff that we went through, that they had to deal with. And I saw myself in that. I was like, man, this could just so easily be me right now. I mean, I was like right there. And so anyway, I went to treatment. I wrote a letter to stay there as a volunteer because I had nowhere else to go, and they let me stay out there as a volunteer. And I just helped kind of do the facility, and I became the cook. I had a driver's license still, which is like gold in treatment centers. And
It's a long walk to the Herald store.
yeah, long walk to the Herald store. And the executive director there at the time said, "Have you ever thought about being a counselor? I think you'd be a natural at it." So I went back to college. They put me in there as an intern in 2002. I finished 2007. It took me a long time because I had to work and drive to American River College. But yeah, I just like Mary, I stayed there. I was a counselor for 6 years. I got on the board with CAR. I just kept doing the deal and became a program director. And then when the executive director at the time, Sumner O'Feal, had passed in 2010, then I became the executive director. In 2013, Susan Blackshear gave me an offer to come over to CAR, which I did because I thought I wanted to make more of an impact statewide. I love the treatment, but I like to also represent all the programs and everything that we do at CCAP. So, but all that came down to a little social model program out in Harold. I didn't know how I got there. You know, it just happened, and it changed my whole life. So I want to thank all of you for the support that you give to the programs and to treatment, and everybody in the county that puts their efforts into that. It's very important, very, very important, and we at CCAP put efforts into supporting those programs. And I still go to all the county meetings, as many as I can. I'm going to do a presentation there on the 13th at the meeting on ethics. So just giving back any way we can. So I just want to say thank you. Wouldn't be here today without county drug and alcohol treatment program.
That's great.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, you'd like to join us, and Dr. Keller, Lee, Chief Sealist over here. Anybody else you'd like to? Greg, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Very powerful story. So, well, what we've embodied in words here in the resolution that the board approved here this morning certainly doesn't, actually pales in comparison, obviously, to the testimonials that two of you have given. And but I think it's a further confirmation of the work that's being done, certainly in the broader community, the support that's important, certainly from the public side of it, but also obviously the will and the willingness for folks to take up the mantle, to go out there and to work with folks one-on-one and to make a difference in lives, and obviously the lives of our community. And you two are, again, strong testament to all that. So the board proclaims, as we have done annually for a number of years, September of this year, 2017, as the Alcohol and Drug Recovery Month, to, I think, recognize and to say to the broader community that this is important, not only to the folks obviously that are in those programs, but to the families and to our entire community for the reasons we've heard here this morning. And so this year's theme is Join the Voices for Recovery, your two voices and those of others, strengthen families and communities. And so I think that pretty much sums it up. And so with that, this board again proclaims this month, upcoming month, September of 2017, all 30 days as the Alcohol and Drug Recovery Month here in this community. But I think for every day of each and every month, something we need to keep in the forefront of our minds to help people and to do what we can to make for a better life for folks who are in need, but also for all of us. So with that, I will present a copy to Craig, and I guess there's a copy to this side, and we can take a picture.
Okay,
and,
sure.
If we need more copies, we can. Those are easily to come by. So
Okay.
thank you.
Cool.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks so much. Okay. With that, we've got some more presentation. I would just note, too, before we take the next item, that we do have some off-agenda speakers, and we'll try to get to those as we have time this morning. So we've got some folks on behalf of Children's Coalition. Mr. Saunders is in the audience, and there may be others as well. I think Dana White, and so we'll try to get to you as we get some breaks in the scheduled items. So, okay, with that, what's that?
Item 46, presentation of resolution congratulating the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission upon the occasion of its 40th anniversary.
Okay, I know we have a number of special guests. We have commissioners and folks who've made time out of their days to be with us to recognize the 40th anniversary of the Metropolitan Arts Commission. I'm going to come down and make a presentation, unless you wanted to do your presentations, and we actually have, I think, an update on not only activities, but I think the arts and culture plan that the Commission has been working on, I think ties in with some of the statewide efforts. And so I don't know what the preference is. Would you like me to do the presentation first, or would you like to come? I know, Donnie, you were the first commissioner on the docket, and we have Mr. Silva, and Marie, and Rebecca Gerritsen, and Steve Winlock, Lou Vismara, Jody Ulich, and Jonathan Gless. And so I don't know if you want to have me do the presentation, or if you want to go through your comments, and we'll kind of do it in the order that you would prefer. So,
I think the commissioners would like to do the proclamation first.
Sure, we can do that. Hey, Steve, how are you? Good to see you. You too. Hi, Donnie. Hey, Rebecca. Okay, this morning, as I just noted, we have a number of our appointed commissioners for the Sacramento Metropolitan Arts Commission, and I think these folks are certainly representative of the entire commission, folks who carve time out of their otherwise busy and full schedules to, I think, work on the development and quality of life here in our community, and I think to not only impress upon those who might be the intended audience, but to the broader community how important arts are to our daily lives and all the various iterations thereof. And so today's resolution congratulates the Metropolitan Arts Commission on its 40th anniversary, and so you folks are, in a long line of succession of folks who've served, certainly from the inception of the commission 4 decades ago to this very moment. And I know over the years, and the resolution calls us out, certainly the work that's been done in our county, in our cities, and certainly our communities, our neighborhoods, and our schools, and in many different venues have really played a key role, I think, in the quality of life, but I think the appreciation that comes with arts of many types and many kinds, and certainly want to compliment the commission. I would just note that some of the examples include the Cultural Arts Award program, the New Works Arts Awards program, the Fellowship Awards. You have marketing and mini grants for aspiring artists, community enhancement grants, special art project grants, art stabilization grants, micro grants. A lot of money out there. Not really. I know people are always going to argue. I know more money for the arts. Artscapes, sounds good anyway. Artists in schools, facilities grants, and cultural equity grants, and artists in the community. And again, I say that kind of half jokingly because there is always a strain on the resources that are available, but I think it's, again, emblematic of the work that goes on to try to penetrate the community in many different ways to encourage artists, to encourage appreciation of art, and to really I think, have the community rally around that, not only when it comes to resources, but certainly to enjoy the various opportunities and many opportunities here in this community. So this commission, and certainly its commissioners, its staff over the years have worked very, very hard to, I think, again, promote art and artists and art in this community, and have achieved that in many ways. So I want to compliment the commission on behalf of this board for your vision, for the good work, the hard work that each and every one of you done, and for the success that's been documented in so many different ways. And it's visible to us, but it's also, I think, it's reflected in the appreciation that people of all ages have for the arts in this community, and hopefully that we can build upon a stronger foundation. And I know my colleagues on the board certainly have been very supportive over the years and can reflect on their own thoughts about that. So, as you embark upon the next 40 years as a commission serving this community in so many ways, I want to offer our congratulations and best wishes, and certainly recognize the success and the things that have really, I think, helped this community grow in so many ways and to be a better community and the quality of life for the work and for people of all ages and all walks of life. So on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and a grateful community, we present this to the commissioners here today, and thank you so much for being here and for your work that's ongoing. So congratulations. Thank you.
Tall guys on the end.
Okay, okay, we'll do this. Okay. Okay, if you want to offer some, anybody might get comments, it's up to you, or are you going to have?
We have someone, I
Okay.
think, who wishes to make comments.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Supervisors, Chair Natoli. I'm Jonathan Gluss. I'm the very new Cultural Services and Creative Economy Manager. I would like to thank Supervisor Kennedy for being part of the process of bringing me here. It's great to meet you. I've been on the job for 2.5 weeks, and I already feel like I've been here a year, so I think that's good news. But this is really a very exciting time to be here. I also want to thank the Sacramento Arts Commission leadership for being here this morning, but also for being real leaders and guidance for the staff every day, actually. And they'll continue to be leaders going forward through this cultural planning process. So I wanted to briefly bring you up to speed on 2 projects. One is the community-wide cultural plan that we have undertaken as of last month. For those of you who are not familiar with the cultural plan, it is a region-wide plan. Excuse me. The last time such a plan took place was about 17 to 20 years ago. So it's been quite a while. The city is obviously very different in many ways. So this is our opportunity to take a big picture, 10,000 feet look at really not just cultural assets, but what the community wants to experience from an arts and culture perspective in our community, and some broad bucket areas that are being looked at are arts education, creative placemaking, artist needs, including housing. Certainly funding is always an issue. The larger question of cultural tourism and cultural branding, and how all of that ties into all the work that is happening in the many different districts and neighborhoods of the region. The team is the Cultural Planning Group based here in California. They will be working very closely with an advisory committee over the next 4 months. We'll have a variety of community-based stakeholder meetings, including outside of the city of Sacramento and in the county. We will also make sure that the consultants meet with each of you one-on-one to make sure that we have your input, and we'll be looking to you to help us to make sure that we are actually talking with your constituents, both your arts-interested constituents and those constituents who may not feel like they have access to arts and culture right now. So it's a big project over the next few months. We're very excited about it. We have Randy Cohen here today from Americans for the Arts as part of launching the study. Americans for the Arts every 5 years does a study on the economic impact of the nonprofit arts across the country. I'm not going to say anything else about the study. I'm going to let Randy talk about the findings both nationally and locally. But what I will say about it is it has been a tremendous tool over the years for elected officials, business leaders, certainly city and county staff, and tourism leadership to benchmark our successes against other cities, certainly benchmark our successes locally, and to identify areas where we can grow every 5 years. So it's become a very tremendous tool and a great asset for you all when you are looking at ways that you can better support and advance the arts in your community. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Randy Cohen. He's the Senior Vice President for Research at Americans for the Arts. Randy?
Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Good morning, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I've got a good story to tell today, and we're talking about the arts, and Sharon Otelli, you just gave such a great enumeration of the great, fabulous benefits that the arts bring to our communities as part of that wonderful proclamation. The arts, they bring us joy, inspiration. They create the communities that we want to live in and that we want to work in. But there's actually one additional benefit, which was not actually part of that list, and that is they provide an economic benefit to our communities. And that's just a different way to think about the arts. And what Arts and Economic Prosperity Study does is it changes the conversation about the arts from charity to industry, one that supports jobs, generates government revenue, and is the cornerstone of tourism. And that's just not an intuitive way to think about the arts. But in fact, those are also the benefits they bring. Sacramento County was one of 341 study regions as part of this national study. We're in all 50 states across the country. We're looking only at the nonprofit arts and culture sector. Why? Because when you, as supervisors, make that investment in the arts, well, those dollars are typically going to nonprofits, and it's an appropriate question. Okay, we get quality of life benefits, but what other benefits is the community getting in terms, of that investment? What else is the ROI on that? And that's what we're looking to capture in this study. Working with the Arts Commission, we surveyed 206 nonprofit arts organizations in the community, heard back from 110. That's what we go with. Take a very conservative approach to economic impact. We can put our hands all over these dollars. I know you see a lot of economic impact studies. We take conservative, reliable approach. We work with a team of economists from Georgia Tech School of Economics who've customized an input-output analysis model specifically for Sacramento County. We provide a very localized data, and that's because $50 spent, in Sacramento has a different economic impact than $50 spent in San Francisco or Tahoe or anywhere else. So you can really feel good about these data. So what do we find out? Nonprofit arts industry, $166.7 million industry, and that's in 2015. $166.7 million of economic activity. That number is composed of two figures. First figure, spending by the organizations themselves, $82.3 million. That's just those 110 organizations. That's a myth buster for a lot of people, right? These are businesses. They employ people locally. They purchase goods and services in the community. Arts organizations are members of the Chamber of Commerce and work with our tourism and convention people. They're good business citizens. But the economic benefits doesn't end there, because the arts, unlike most industries, generate a lot of event-related spending. Think about the last time you went to an exhibition or a fabulous performance. Well, maybe you paid for parking, had dinner, went out for dessert or drinks after the show. If you have little ones at home, you pay for babysitting. If you traveled from far to get here, maybe you had a hotel night. So we look at that event-related spending as well. $84.4 million in spending. So you total all that economic activity up, $166.7 million. What's the economic impact of that? Well, the first thing we look at is what we worry about all the time, jobs. 5,888 jobs supported across the county. Jobs not just at the arts organizations, but community-wide as a result of those organizations spending. And again, think about the arts a little bit differently. Of course, they employ musicians and designers and curators, but they also employ computer programmers and web designers and accountants and auditors and marketing people and engineers and electricians and plumbers. They support jobs throughout the community and provide these community benefits. So employment, even in the global economy, arts, very local industry, and supporting jobs right here in the county. Another big one we look at, government revenue. That economic activity generates $19.9 million in local and state government revenue in this area. So small investment, big returns. We always see the returns to government very significant as a result of that economic activity. Now, arts organizations are businesses. We get that, like all businesses, no surprise, there's a measurable economic impact there, right? My economist reminds me, I could give you a $5 bill and he'll chase you around and see what you do with that and pop that in his economic models. But few industries generate that event-related spending, that every time we go out to the arts event. So we did a survey, 991 audience intercept surveys at arts events across the county, where we asked attendees, how much did you spend related to this arts event? And the typical attendee, $26.36 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. 991 interviews. That's a fabulous statistical oversample. These are great data. $26.36. And you know what? Those 110 organizations, they had 3.2 million attendees in admissions. Every time someone goes to the arts, that's the average economic spending. But the benefits actually extend beyond that, because in addition to how much did you spend at this event, we also asked everybody for their zip code, because we wanted to find out, do those attendees live in Sacramento County, which would make them local, or are they from outside of the county? 19% of attendees came from outside of the county, basically 1 in 5. And do they spend differently? Absolutely they do. Close to $33 per person per event. And more on transportation, more on meals. That's where we see the lodging. So 3.2 million attendees, 19% of them outside the county. 4% of those folks had a lodging cost. They average $145 per person per event, not including that cost of admission. And as we all know, right, you get that head in a bed, that's when the cash registers really start ringing. So what this shows is that when we invest in the arts, we're investing in an industry, and it's one that brings people to the community. Those people spend money. But we wanted to find out, well, all right, why are those non-local people here? So we asked them, why are you here? And, are you here on business? Are you here visiting friends and family? 63%, about 2/3 of them said, we came specifically for this arts event. You can see the pulling power. And then we asked the people who do live in the county, well, what if this arts event wasn't taking place? Would you have stayed home, done something else? 48% said, oh, we traveled to a different community to attend a similar kind of arts event. Now, it's a discretionary expenditure, arts spending, right? You could spend it here, or you could spend it somewhere else. And the arts are keeping our neighbors and their hard-won discretionary dollars right here in town. That's why we say a vibrant arts community is good for local merchants. It's putting, cheeks in seats and derrieres and cafe chairs, and, it's driving a lot of commerce in this area. In your packets, you'll see this pamphlet from the National Study as well as the Sacramento report. And I'd urge you just to flip right to the back, because we have a lot of national partners on this, and you'll recognize some of these. We're in Washington, D.C., the land of national organizations, right? But the National Association of Counties is a national partner on this research study. International City County Managers Association, National Conference of State Legislatures. On the business side, the Conference Board. These organizations are national partners because A, they too believe the arts have a fundamental component as a part of a healthy community, and two, they buy into the methodology and they buy into the results. Trust me, they feel confident about these findings. So the big takeaway here, when we invest in the arts and your arts support, it's improving quality of life, it's attracting creative workers to our community, but it's also driving an industry. A $166.7 million industry that supports 5,888 jobs and generates $19.9 million in government revenue. Arts mean business. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Randy. You obviously know your numbers and certainly do your homework. And thank you for the presentation. I was just curious, in your biography, one of your accomplishments is that you helped lead $1 million conversion of a city council chambers into a performing arts space. So there is hope for government centers even after.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was that at?
So Tacoma, the city of Tacoma Park, Maryland, which is where I live. So we did a cultural plan, and it's really exciting, this cultural planning process, how it's going to engage everybody. But what we found is we were missing a mid-sized facility for people, really small or really big. And the city had some use it or lose it state money, and they increased their investment. We still do our city council meetings in there. There's fabulous modular furniture, and it can be pushed to the back, and then it's a performance space.
Very good. Well, that's a great, very creative conversion. So, well, thank you then for all your work.
Thank you
and
for
I think,
having
the
me.
economics, obviously, the you stress here certainly, I think, really reinforce the fact that it makes good business sense as well, for all the other reasons, but certainly from a business standpoint. So thanks for the presentation. Any, Supervisor Kennedy, do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that it's a great idea to convert City Hall into an arts. But first of all, I want to welcome Jonathan. Great get for us. And what I would encourage is before Jonathan came on board, there was a brief period in which Supervisor Peters and I were meeting with city council members to talk about how do we better support the Arts Commission and actually make it a more vibrant body within the community. I would encourage you to go beyond that. That was a city-county thing. I think it should be bigger than that. It should be, include all of the cities in the county as well as the county. It should include, because as the economic argument has been made, it should include GSAC. It should include the Chamber of Commerce. I think that we need to have a community discussion about what is the future of the Arts Commission, and I have to say this because my wife was a member of the Arts Commission 30 years ago, so if I don't say it, she's watching on TV right now. We have to do a better job of actually formalizing. Is it going to be a department within the city of Sacramento? I don't think it should be. I think that we should be bigger than that. We should think bigger than that. And so welcome to Sacramento, and I hope that we can start embarking on that conversation.
I welcome the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Randy. Any other comments or questions for Jonathan or Randy? Well, again, we thank you for the work you've done, certainly for focusing on our community and Sacramento community. And I think, Jonathan, certainly welcome to you. You're now 2.5 weeks into it, so 40 years from now you can look back and say I was there for the 40th anniversary, right?
Exactly.
Right. At any rate, again, a lot of good work. I think a lot of good work lies ahead, and certainly compliment my colleagues, Supervisors Kennedy and Peters, for their leadership and work in, I think, starting this conversation. And I just would note, too, that I think as we do some of that outreach, that, not to forget the 6 other cities in the county of Sacramento. The Arts Commission at one time, they actually had representative from which were then the small cities of Folsom, Ileton, and Galt. Ileton still being a small city, actually had a representative designee on the Arts Commission, and may still have. But I think it's important, and then I think this conversation to what Supervisor Kennedy said, beyond just the city and even the county of Sacramento, maybe regionally, but I think kind of look to where to grow and to go. But I think recognizing that this is a very important aspect of community life here in Sacramento in our region. So, very good. Well, again, we thank you. Congratulations to the commission. Thank you, Jonathan. Welcome aboard. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you so much. More round of applause for our 40th anniversary production. And if I didn't note it, I think one other commissioner, Michael Marion, I don't know if Michael made it here or not, but I had a note that he was here. He was here. Okay, again. Okay, thanks. All right. Okay. With that, then we've got we're a little bit behind. We've got a full agenda. I know folks are already filtering in for the 10:45 item, and we're still back on the 10:15 item. So at any rate, Ms. Adams, call the next item, please.
Okay, so for item 47, you're acting as the Housing Authority of the County of Sacramento. This is the update on submission of the 2017 annual plan, mid-year revision for the Housing Authority of the County of Sacramento to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Chair Natoli and members of the board. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I'm with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency with the Housing Choice Voucher Program. I just wanted to do a quick update on the administrative process related to the homeless initiative that you approved in March of this year to house over 1,700 homeless individuals and families utilizing turnover HCV vouchers and public housing units. To recap, in March, we brought forward a multi-pronged three-year implementation plan. On the left side, which is the HCV side, the goal is to utilize 50% of our turnover vouchers to house homeless families and 50% of the turnover to serve families on our current waiting list. For public housing, the goal was for 80% of the turnover, which equates to the city public housing units that turn in a year, to be dedicated to serve homeless families, and the county public housing, which is 20% of the portfolio, to serve families off the waiting list. Over the next 3 years, our goal is to have vouchers be allocated to families who are linked to services, such as through the Flexible Supports Rehousing Program that the county is working on. Vouchers would be project-based as well. As we know, hard units are important to have in our community, and I will be presenting more information on this item as part of your next agenda item today. We also anticipate leveraging an additional 300 units over a 3-year period. Vouchers will also be dedicated to serve families who are currently in permanent supportive housing but may not need all the intensive services, and so we would provide what we call a move-on voucher, and then we would also have vouchers available for homeless youth through the P3 program, the Performance Pilots Partnership Program. In addition, we would have public housing units, city public housing units as well, available to serve the homeless, and so in total 1,755 vouchers and units will be available over this 3-year period. In order to implement this comprehensive initiative utilizing vouchers and public housing, following HUD regulations, staff had to amend all of our 2017 administrative documents, including the overarching annual plan, which discusses PHA policies, rules, and requirements, our public housing admissions and continued occupancy document, that's a mouthful, it's called the ACOP for short, and also our HCV administrative plan. Now, both of the last two documents I mentioned are the policy documents that govern how we operate the program locally based on the regulations that are provided by HUD. So after our March meeting, staff worked diligently to update all the documents and turn it around to start the public comment period. So this was in May, and it was for a 45-day comment period. During the public comment review period, staff met with the Resident Advisory Board, that's part of public housing, as well as Legal Services of Northern California, as well as solicited feedback from the public on our documents. The documents were amended as necessary based on this public input, and the final report was taken to our commission earlier this summer. As time is of the essence to house the homeless, the documents have been submitted to HUD already, and we're waiting for their approval. HUD has 75 days to provide their feedback, and we hope to receive their approval in October. At that time, when we receive the approval, we will have all systems ready to implement the initiative, partnering with county departments as necessary to house the homeless individuals and families. So that's my short presentation, and I'm glad to take any questions.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. We do have some comments or questions. Supervisor Sarna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the update, Sarah. One of the things that concerns me, and I've had the opportunity to meet with Michelle and her staff to discuss in the last several weeks, is what the very low vacancy rate in the region and the county for residential units is, how it's likely to affect the ability to implement in the time frame that we want the use of these vouchers, both housing choice, project-based, for the reprioritization for chronically homeless. What's the latest in terms of any feedback or assessment that we have of how the market may or may not respond? And by market, I'm meaning that subset of landlords that have a history participating with the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Well, we do have programs right now within our portfolio where we work with homeless families, and we are seeing that they are taking a long time to find a unit. So as we know, the rental market is tight. What we are looking for with all of these programs is really to link the families closely with service providers to help them find the units in addition to project basing. So we want to make sure that there are those robust services to help them drive them out and actually find the units as well.
And I appreciate that. I guess maybe I didn't articulate it clearly. What I'm concerned about is the fact that vacancy rates are hovering around 2%, is my understanding. And when vacancy rates are that low, when there's that much demand and so little supply in our regional or county market, are we seeing any reluctance by landlords that have participated in the voucher process in the past, kind of throw up their hands and say, well, I've got a line of folks ready to pay me higher rents, and they're going to decide that they're going to cut ties with the voucher program altogether. That's my concern.
Okay.
I don't know if the microphone's it's right here. There, it's on. I think it's on.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Supervisor Cerner, I think you raised a very excellent concern, and one that we voiced from the very beginning of this particular process and trying to do the outreach. The one thing that is very clear to us is that in the programs that are being developed by the county as well as the city, it is imperative that we really have outreach and housing locators that are really immersed into the program. It really will determine whether we're successful or not. If we just give people a voucher and say good luck, we will have no success in this program, and that's just the honest truth. So one of the things as we sit down and we talk about, the 150 vouchers that will be used by the city and county, the component that's really key is make sure that we have a housing locator who's working individually, not only with our families, but also doing the outreach to landlords and finding landlords that are interested in really serving kind of more of the public good and want to participate in the process. Those are the kind of cornerstones that will really help us get to the 1755.
And remind me again, thank you for that. Remind me again the frequency of these updates that we're going to be receiving.
In terms of all of the things that we have going, we'll probably be seeing you about every other month because there's so many things that are happening so quickly. Some of the things we are accelerating so that we can kind of get ahead and take advantage, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our next item. But we will be in front of you, I would expect, every other month.
If I could, I'd like to suggest that with those future updates to this board, and you might consider as well for the city council, just a slide that mentions how we're doing with regard to that specific targeted navigation involving landlords to get them to be as participatory as possible with this.
No,
Thank you.
I think that's great.
Okay, any other? Yeah, Supervisor Kennedy.
Yeah, just to follow up on Supervisor Serna's questions and comments. I completely agree. We can throw out 1755 or whatever the number is, but these vouchers are not worth the paper that they're printed on if nobody accepts them. Are we looking at going outside of SHRA, the city, the county, and utilizing resources, specifically, for example, like Sacramento Self-Help Housing, working with other organizations that have this expertise to actually make the vouchers useful?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the programs, the P3, that's working with our youth, they're part of the team that we have. When Youth Services is also at the table. So we're working very collaboratively with a lot of organizations who have additional expertise to bring to the table. It's not just SHRA, it's all of the partners who are involved.
I would also like to add that we are actually seeing some landlords that are coming that weren't part of the program, and they really believe in the mission of serving homeless. So while you're always having some landlords that might not be interested anymore, there are landlords that are interested in the mission and are interested in joining the program.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it is, but with vacancy rates being what they are in Sacramento, I mean, it's going to be tough.
And I guess one other thing that I would like to add is another component that we're really evaluating is the value of the voucher, and working with HUD to see can we get any exceptions to our payment standards to go higher and be more competitive. They are issuing small market FMRs, I'm in acronym world, fair market rent, sorry. So we're evaluating that and looking specifically to see how can we increase the amount that we can pay on the voucher to be more competitive. So all of those things are the factors that we are considering.
Just a follow-on question, either Lachelle or Sarah. What sort of vacancy rate do we have in housing units that we oversee, SHRA?
Very low.
Very low?
Very low.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, sometimes those units may be damaged or whatever, or move out. So the move out, move in, recognizing obviously not just the tightness of the market, but that queue that's out there. Are we able, so what would be a normal turnaround? If somebody vacated on the first of the month, can somebody move in by the 15th? Or can they move in quicker than that? Or what's your...
No, not quite that quick.
Okay.
We do strive for a 21. I'd say we're probably within, depending on the unit, anywhere from 21 to 35 days, somewhere in there, in terms of what it takes to turn a unit and get it ready for the next family. Sometimes a bit shorter or sometimes longer.
Is that a resource issue for the agency? Because I asked that because, again, obviously a lot of that's done with your staff. Maybe you have to go to outside contractors depending upon the nature of whatever needs to be done.
We have a combination of outside contractors who help with our vacancy turns as well as our internal staff. So if it's something that's beyond our staff, that's when we'll contract out.
Yeah, I asked a question though from the standpoint that if there was something that in your budget, I know obviously you run a tight ship, but if there was a need in order to, again, recognizing the units that we have within our portfolio, some of those are aged, some are newer, but if there's a way to, again, get it done quicker, but do it reasonably. Obviously, you have to, because a lot of times you've already background checked folks and they're ready.
Yes.
You know how many bedrooms are in the unit and such. That particularly as inclement weather gets closer, that if there was some need to either supplement or look at your resource allocation as it relates to either your annualized budget and or some other things, I guess I'd be willing to entertain that, because again we we have a sizable number of units. If that turnaround could be, say, a 10-day turnaround, then you might be able to get 3 or 4 more families or homeless individuals or whatever in. Again, I don't know what those numbers are, but I just recognizing that in a tight marketplace, that if you got to wait a month or longer to get folks in, that's not the average. I get 21 days, but even 3 weeks, if you could shorten that by half, It's a quicker turnaround to get more folks in. So again, I would just, point that out to again, to consider that, and that might be a way, again, to get a few more folks in to, I think, accelerate what we're trying to accomplish here and hopefully serve everybody well, including the agency, obviously. So.
Okay, great.
All right. Just one other question I had. So with the project-based vouchers, and we had an item earlier today where we issued some of those, but if you had a landlord come to you, we have obviously partners, but someone said, I could commit long-term to, say, 10 units. Do you have some flexibility that you could, because with the project-based obviously comes a commitment for services that go behind that and so forth, but what sort of flexibility do you have with regards to that, and particularly if you have folks that are new that are coming forward, and maybe not just onesie-twosies, but say, I've got a complex here that we could carve out a portion of this and keep some in the private market, but it's put some to the private. What sort of flexibility does the agency have with regards to vouchers that could be assigned, either short-term or long-term? So.
Well, they wouldn't be under the project basing, but now that we have put the policies in place that Sarah was just mentioning through the county's program, the FSRP, Flexible Supportive Rehousing Program, program that's coming forward, that's exactly the type of thing we'll be looking at is how can we take those commitment from landlords and then connect and marry them to service providers so that they can have a constant flow of individuals. So that is a part of what Sarah was talking about, that we now have that flexibility within our administrative plan to do so.
Okay. Thanks for that. Just the last comment, and it got touched on in some of our discussions, and I think some felt to the county more than it did to SHRA, but my question about some of these distressed properties, the hotels and motels that may still be open, but I can certainly identify 2 in my district to start with, maybe 3 or 4. Again, they're I think they're on the margin, and without saying anything better or worse about the properties and how they're managed, they certainly are a drain on calls for service when it comes to the sheriff in some cases, and that's been looked at, and the DA obviously with the community prosecutor and code enforcement. I guess I'm still interested to know where, and I guess I would look to you and Mr. Gill as well, where we're going with that. I mean, it's not inexpensive, and there's long-term commitments, and we've had some, obviously what we did earlier today, and we've made some vouchers available for some of the work in District 3, and that's great. But I guess I'm curious as to, how active we're pursuing that, because it may serve the marketplace already, but if we're trying to help people who want to help themselves versus just having a degraded property that's marginal and that charges people whatever the market will bear out there when they don't have deposit and back on their heels. So I guess I'm still interested to know, because to me that is a way I think that we can ultimately create some opportunity for units that are well managed, coordinated, that become less of a drain on county resources, and allow us to work within the confines of what we're trying to do with regards not just to homeless folks, but to people who may be on the margin that could afford a unit if those were converted, and they're in corridors that once were well traveled, but maybe no longer, or they served as freeway corridors in the past. I think about Folsom Boulevard, and so I guess I'm still very interested. It's kind of like we talked about that, and then it kind of went away. Maybe in your district, but I'm just saying, I've heard no more.
We're talking about it for the whole county.
Okay.
I have a map in my office of all the motels.
Okay, I didn't know
in
that.
the county.
All.
Okay, so in the war room, you got it all mapped out. Okay, I didn't realize that. So.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we have developers that are ready to go put the properties in escrow, but you'll see in the next item that one of them is actually going to, this voucher program is going to make the economic reality for the developer, and we should be under construction in a year.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I commend that.
We just need to do more of it.
Yeah, right. Because I got a couple candidates in my district I'd be willing to work with, again, to try to provide some incentives. I know we have the ear of at least one of those owners too. So, okay, thanks. All right. Anything else on this item then?
That's it.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sarah, and thanks, Lachelle. I don't have anybody signed up on item 47. Anyone here I wish to address item 47? All right, seeing none, then it's for our board.
Move the item.
Okay.
Second.
Moving second then to approve item 47. And with that then, if nothing further, please vote.
unanimous vote.
Okay, very good. Next item.
Okay. For item 48, it's the award of project-based vouchers to house families, homeless families, and individuals.
I'm back again. Good morning,
It's like
Chair
you never
Natoli.
left, Sarah.
I didn't left, but I thought maybe I'd try to do this. I'm here. Good morning, Chair Natoli and members of the board. My name is Sarah Thomas. I'm with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, and I'm here to provide you with an update on the homeless initiative that was brought forward to you in March of this year. And my focus with this presentation is going to be specifically related to the allocation of project-based vouchers to serve homeless individuals and families. First, I'd like to take a step back and provide a quick recap, which I provided in my previous presentation as well, related to our initiative. We came forward March 15th with the multi-pronged strategy. With the HCV program, we said 50% of the vouchers would pull families off our current waiting list, and 50% of our turnover vouchers would be for the flexible supports rehousing program, the Move On program to serve homeless youth, and also we would utilize a portion of the turnover vouchers to add affordable housing units to serve homeless families with project-based vouchers. Project-based vouchers are where the subsidy is tied to the unit and the family does not have to search in the open market for available rental units. So looking at the top portion of the chart, our goal in 3 years is to allocate 450 vouchers to the limited allocation program through the FSRP program, 50 vouchers to the Move On, 100 to the homeless youth, and 375 to be project-based over the 3-year period. 75 were through the Veterans Assistance Supportive Housing Program, or VASH, which is the program serving homeless veterans, and 300 for the HCV regular program. So this report focuses on the project-based voucher component of this 4-pronged HCV strategy, as we know that it's an integral program, a component to get homeless families off the streets where there are units waiting for them to move into. Soon after the homeless strategy was brought forward to you earlier this year, staff released a request for proposal to developers who wanted to utilize project-based vouchers to serve the homeless and who have access to services as well. This RFP was released on June the 9th, and projects were due on July the 17th. While our original strategy indicated releasing 100 vouchers per year, which came forward to you in March, given the tight rental market, this RFP made available 200 project-based vouchers serving homeless individuals and families, with the ability to allocate more based on the need in the community. A total of 12 projects requesting 484 project-based vouchers was received. 8 projects are recommended to be awarded a total of 368 project-based vouchers. Of these vouchers, 231 are available for families and individuals to move into existing units as there is turnover, and 137 to build new units that will be constructed over the next 1 to 3 years. While we know the importance of having new units come online is important, we also know that it is important to preserve existing units to house the homeless. Without these vouchers going to these developments, homeless units would be lost. I'm sorry, it's a little bit hard, but this is a map showing the location of the projects where the award is taking place throughout Sacramento County. In addition, 25 project-based vouchers were allocated to each of the following 3 projects for a total of 75 vouchers. And this is through the VASH program. This is for the Hotel Berry, Twin Rivers, and Mather Veterans Village Phase 3. 2/3 are for new construction, with occupancy staggered over the next few years, and then 1/3 for existing units. Now here is a map with all of the projects. This includes the regular HCV program and the VASH vouchers as well shown. The red lettering indicates the 8 projects through the regular HCV program, and the purple darker ones are the 3 projects allocated through the VASH program.
Sarah, just real quickly, so you showed 375 project-based vouchers available. You're going to award 368. What happens to the other 7?
Well, the 375, actually, it'll be explained right here. So the 375 is 75 for VASH and 300 for the regular HCV program. That's how we had indicated in March. So right now it's going to be 75 for the VASH and an additional 68 in addition to the 300 for the regular HCV. So it's 368 plus 75.
Okay.
So to summarize, we've been very busy in our department. We approved to allocate 375 vouchers, 75 through the VASH program and 300 with regular HCV program. The 75 VASH have already been allocated to the 3 projects, and given the high demand for additional project-based vouchers, instead of 300 being allocated over a 3-year period, staff is recommending 368 be allocated in the first year. A third will be for new units and 2/3 to house existing housing. So this is an addition of 68 project-based vouchers over the approved 300 to be allocated from our existing pool. By providing the vouchers to each development, the units are kept affordable for 20 years with the option to renew the contracts for an additional 20 years. Given the current demand for affordable housing, we plan to issue additional RFPs for additional project-based vouchers in the near future. And this, again, will be exceeding our original projection of 375 over 3 years. So at this time, staff requests your approval of allocating the additional 68 vouchers from our existing pool of vouchers to be project-based. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Any questions by board members? Okay, Supervisor Peters. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to point out that after the board's listened to me for some time talk about Courtyard Inn, and this what they have been doing is going in to try and get various state funding, and what is not happening is that Northern California is not getting availability towards these funding, like cap and trade and other programs. It's primarily going to Southern California. And I'm going to ask the county executive to get our lobbyist on board to start visiting the elected members in the state capitol to point out the disparities in the funding. I can't say that that is exactly the reason why this project didn't get funded, but that's a comment in general. I don't know that we have a work plan for the lobbyists to talk about the fairness of the funding in the various bonds that come up for distribution. So Courtyard Inn first went in for homeless funding, couldn't get anything. No, and then they switched to workforce housing and couldn't get anything, and now they're back on because the board and the redevelopment agency are providing the vouchers. It gives economic certainty, so they have a 20-year term on them, and that should be enough to for the private sector to come forward in the spring to get tax credit financing. Hopefully the 9% will be available, but it's such a complex formula for these projects to get state funding, and I think that some delving into what goes on behind the scenes really needs to happen here. So I'm thrilled about this, because every time you go in for funding and you don't get it that year, it takes a whole nother year to go through the process and hear whether you've got funding, and it's moving too slowly, and there's not enough coming to Northern California, in my opinion. And this is a way out of some of our problems in not having housing available for homeless individuals. I do have another question. I don't know if Ann Edwards is here. I think it was, I talked to her, but at one time when I first brought this idea up about this particular motel, which has close to 400 service calls a year from the sheriff's department, and that's how it first kind of came to mind, I wanted to do this for veterans housing, and I was told, well, the way the system works is that there's a list that the department has, and you kind of take whoever comes to the top of the list. And so we couldn't have it just for veterans housing, but I think Lavender Courtyard is specifically aimed at a certain, no, it's not?
Not Lavender, Mather, Vets Village.
Oh, okay, Veterans Village there. So I'm trying to understand how, in some cases, you can direct certain kinds of individuals to one project and then not others. And I'm not sure who could answer that question.
Oh, I can answer that question. Mather Veterans Village received project basing of VASH vouchers. So they had a specific allocation that allowed them to only serve veterans. And I believe when we first started talking about Courtyard, we were talking about how we could pull them from our regular list versus project basing. So if we had project based like Mather Vets Village, which used a combination of the funding from the VASH vouchers and other resources, then that's where you could focus. And their whole focus and their whole development is for veterans.
So did Mercy Housing decide they didn't want to go for that kind of funding?
I think that in a different scenarios we ran, we did look at that, but it's just the number, and it just wasn't
the number's too small
feasible to do.
Okay.
To do that for the number that we were trying to get to in this scenario.
So I'm not suggesting we change anything, because it seems like the doors finally might be opening a little bit here, but there's no way from the way our system has to work to, we're giving homeless people ahead of to the top of the list, but homeless vets can't.
Well, what we could look
Can't direct it more that way?
Yes. What we could look at in terms of different developments is a portion of those vouchers. If we have a different tranche of VASH vouchers that comes from HUD, and we issue an
switch them out.
RFP, then we could then look at saying we're going to have a section, let's say 25 of the total maybe for veterans housing. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's project basing. That's where when we attach it to the unit and say we're specifically going to serve veterans is when we can do exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, and so how will we...
How will we know?
Yeah, how will I know if
I will keep you apprised, definitely, and we'll be monitoring from the federal government when they give us allocations of VASH vouchers, and we've been very successful. Each year we have received additional VASH vouchers. So
it seems like Sacramento, the facilities, the former base facilities from the Army Depot to Mather and McClellan, that there would be a lot of veterans. They stay here who might be in need of services. It seems like Sacramento County in general, including the cities in it, should be more at the top of the list for VASH funding.
Yes.
So, okay, so I'll rely on you to tell me if that becomes available so we can set the scenario up that way. But otherwise, I just, I guess the other thing would be is, as we talked yesterday, is looking at the other motels in the county generally and trying to find developers, like we found Mercy, to go in and see if they can convert them. We just need more of a program through your agency to make it easier.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things we're talking about in meetings is what does that strategy look like? But most importantly, it's really where is that stable funding source? That's what developers are looking for.
Right.
Where is that local funding source that will close their gap? If we identify that, then we know how to get it done. That's not the issue. It is about the money available.
Okay. We'll continue to work on it, but thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure the board knew this finally is beginning to move forward. Cross your fingers for tax credit financing next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thanks. Supervisor Stern?
Thank you. If you could you go back to the last slide you had there, Sarah, please? Yeah, thanks. So again, as I mentioned earlier, I think I view this as swift movement towards additional capacity for our continuum, and I would like to suggest that I know that there's been a lot of thought already put into what tomorrow's presentation staff presentation on the American River Parkway proposal is going to be about. But I think at this point, given all this terrific information we're getting this morning about, again, kind of thematically about how we're enhancing capacity, I think we might want to consider, Mr. Gill, having some reference to maybe this slide or some others that have been used to express that this morning. Again, I think there's been some rightful questioning about where folks will be going, whether it's from the Parkway or from other parts of the county. And I think, again, in the interest of telling our story as best we can, in real time almost, that we ought not to let an opportunity like this go unnoticed in the context of what we're trying to achieve to address the social impacts of homelessness as well as the human impacts. So I'd like to suggest that we give some thought in the next 24 hours to how some of this information might be incorporated into to that presentation.
We will do that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Kennedy?
Yeah, it's just a question. These 368, what's the net gain for homeless people? I mean, for example, I know Saybrook had, Lachelle, help me here, like 56 or something. So I mean, there's an increase there. So what's the net gain?
Well, definitely for the new construction, we've got the number of the new construction. For Saybrook, there is an additional 4 units for Saybrook. And all the others, it's really based on the turnover that they have right now, that there would be gain right now. But eventually, we hope that it will be more than just the turnover.
So it's a couple hundred net gain, roughly.
Roughly.
Already. And we just started having this conversation 6-8 months ago. Okay.
Great point.
Just a question, and I saw a memo on item 20. I want to be clear. So this closes the budget gap for Cerna Village.
That's
Dodgers.
correct.
Yes.
Okay, so there's no longer going to be, because I know in the item 20 it referenced, submittal for a TOT grant application as being a potential funding source. But between the $100,000 we authorized in item 20, based on previous board direction, and these vouchers, that closes the gap entirely?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, good. I just want to be, all right, check that one off the list.
Yes.
Good, that's good work. And just on the, and I appreciate Supervisor Kennedy's question about the net units, then but that'll be somewhat dependent upon turnover, what sort of projection do you do on that? I mean, that's, you have some idea what kind of attrition is, or move-outs, move-ins. So what's your sense that, say, a year from now, if you just took the average, how many of those would you think could be assigned?
It really varies by the different complexes, of course, but if I was going to guess, on average, it might be 2 a month per complex on average. It may not be that many, but.
Okay, all right. Gives you some idea, though, that the absorption. Okay. And just lastly, I think that reference to Supervisor Cerna's comments, that I think another piece of the equation that we heard earlier this morning was just on the drug and alcohol, and some of the, treatment regimes, and the ability to, find folks where they are, and the testimony we heard from several folks. That's a key piece. I mean, it's that service availability and people trying to cope with homelessness, but certainly with an addiction. And I just think that has to remain. And a lot of that is funded from different sources than obviously SHRA. But it's key to being successful, and so I think we need to keep our eye on the ball when it comes to that as well. So, Supervisor Frost.
We also, tomorrow when we're having that discussion about the number of units available, can we have information relating to the new construction timeline and when those units will be available?
Absolutely. Right now we have just estimates of 2019 and 2020 on the chart here, but we can get more information for the new units.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions, then I don't have anyone sign up on this item. I do have an item 49 and some of the subsequent items, but anyone wish to address this item? Item 48? Okay, if not, we're going to need 2 reactions because of the inclusion of Mather, so I don't know if you want to make the first motion, Ms. Peters, and then we'll take a second reaction, or whoever wants to make a motion. But
Ask the clerk to help me get the wording right. I would move approval on all the projects except for Mather, where I might have a conflict. So Cerna Village, Martin Luther, Shasta, Courtyard, Saybrook, Victory, Lavender.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve all of the recommendations with exception call out Mather, and we'll have a separate motion on that. So if there's nothing further, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay. And I would move the remaining item with Mather. And just one comment, if I could. I think there's still some need. We're going to have a conversation here in the next couple of weeks about sale of Mather property, but there's a need for, I think, contribution to that project to get that over the top. So, and I know we were a partner on that previously, not necessarily from the agency. The agency is bringing the VASH to the table, but so that'll be a point of conversation. Okay, I move the item.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Unanimous vote with Supervisor Peters recusing.
Good. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, Lachelle, and your staff. Okay, next item.
Okay, for your next item, 49, you're acting as the Board of Supervisors and Housing Authority of the County of Sacramento. Adoption of Environmental Findings and Action Plan Amendment for the Twin Rivers Choice Neighborhoods Initiative Implementation Grant. Approval of Twin Rivers Transit-Oriented Development and Light Rail Station Project and related funding. Approval of the Twin Rivers Relocation Plan and authorization to relocate public housing residents. Approval of application for public housing vouchers. Authorization to demolish Twin Rivers public housing units, approval of funding allocation for relocation and demolition, authorization to submit applications for infrastructure financing and related grants, authorization to execute lease with Urban Strategies, and authorization for the Housing Authority to implement or delegate activities to other entities as applicable.
And you just covered Mr. Ross's presentation.
Absolutely. I was going to say, any questions?
Good job, Jeff.
Well, good morning, Chair Natoli, Supervisors. It is my great pleasure to bring before you this morning the Twin Rivers Transit-Oriented Development and Light Rail Station Project. This is, as you know, the oldest development in the County Housing Authority's inventory, and for the last 5.5 years we've been working in partnership with you and the city, as well as the residents and the surrounding community, to really re-envision what the redevelopment of this community will look like, and to really make sure that we've connected it not only physically but socially and economically back to the fabric of the surrounding community. And so before you today is the staff report that really allows us to actually begin this work in earnest. And so we're asking first for the approval of the environmental to be able to go forward and utilize federal funds. Second, we are asking for the amendment to be able to go forward with the funds that have previously been allocated and to be able to expand the use to include actual development activities. And third, to adopt the relocation plan. And so we're doing this because not only to address the issues of the community itself, but the beauty of the Choice Neighborhood Program and the seed funding that we received from HUD a couple of years ago, we get to go at it in a couple of different ways. We get to have a very strong focus on the residents and making sure that we're looking at health outcomes, education, and employment opportunities for them. But we also have the ability to then build new infrastructure and facilities that are worthy of any resident in our community. And likewise, we have an opportunity to work with the neighborhood. And as the previous conversations were discussing, I think it's very important to point out that obviously a large component of our homeless services are in the surrounding neighborhood of Twin Rivers. And so we have the ability through the program to also physically address how those facilities interact and serve the homeless population, so that we're addressing not only how we better serve our residents that are part of Twin Rivers, but how we serve our residents that are also our homeless members within the community. And so we have a detailed critical community inventory that we've been partnering with the city as the co-applicant and neighborhood lead that has been submitted to HUD. It has some facility improvements for the homeless. It has a placemaking strategy. It has other improvements that will really help reconnect the fabric of Twin Rivers and the surrounding neighborhood back in. In addition to that, we are looking to build a new park. We're looking to build a new light rail station, all within the community, and we're looking at the redevelopment of the 218 public housing units, but building upwards of 500 units that are then mixed income and truly integrated. With that, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Lauren from our development department, our development partner, I should say, McCormick, Barron, Salazar, to kind of walk through some of the highlights of the first couple of phases. And then when she's done, myself and other staff will be available to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of our first two phases. We received site plan approval, I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Those are for 170 mixed income units. And we are hoping to include the park that Jeff just mentioned within those first two phases. There will also be a significant amount of infrastructure. About 2/3 of our total infrastructure package will be developed or constructed within that time frame as well. We are hoping to have the development certified as Greenpoint, with some of the amenities being car charging stations, a bike share facility, a car share facility, energy efficient lighting, and low flow plumbing fixtures. We're hoping to trick it out and make it as green as we possibly can. So we're right now actively applying for funding for the first two phases and hoping to get our third phase funded within the next year as well. So that's, again, just kind of a general overview. If you guys have any additional questions, I'm here to answer those.
Okay. I just had a question. Maybe that's what you were looking for, Jeff. So with regards to the commission, you had a split vote at the commission level, at least on a portion of this? And then I guess you came back and got a unanimous vote. So.
Yes. So the vote was split. The first vote was to move the environmental adoption and the authorization to expand the use of funds for activities. And the commission wanted to have a more extended conversation on the relocation plan. So there was subsequent meetings and conversations. Then at the next commission meeting, there was a unanimous vote to move the relocation
all commissioners
plan.
present at that one, too. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks. Okay, any questions? Yeah, Mr. Stern?
No questions, Mr. Chair. I just want to continue to thank our staff at the authority for all the great work that you're doing to take advantage of this somewhat rare opportunity to take advantage of tens of millions of dollars to really transform, as you mentioned, Jeff, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, public housing campus here in our inventory and in the region, and to do so with an eye on how best to incorporate public transit, affordability, obviously, public amenity, as you mentioned, with parks and other aspects of that, and then to do so in a part of the city of Sacramento that really does offer, in many respects, a disproportionate amount of services for those that need help the most. So this is a well-rounded heavy lift by a great team, and thank you for all you're doing.
And you're doing it all while it's occupied as well. That's the other
right.
thing. So that, it really adds to the challenge, but nonetheless, I know you're up to it. So, okay, any other questions for Mr. Ross? If not, I do have a speaker and maybe others here, but I have Patty Kleinknecht. Patty's signed up. Anyone else wish to address item 49? This would be your opportunity. So, Patty, good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Board of Supervisors. Patty Kleinknecht with the River District. And on behalf of the River District, I encourage you to adopt the resolutions before you today for Twin Rivers. It's undergone extensive planning and outreach. And from my observation, there's a great deal of support for this project. It'll transform Twin Rivers into a sustainable, mixed-income, transit-oriented neighborhood with improved educational and job opportunities and enhanced neighborhood amenities. According to HUD, for every dollar spent in Choice Neighborhoods funding, or for every dollar in Choice Neighborhoods funding received, approximately $9 in public and private funding is invested in the target neighborhood. This isolated neighborhood is long overdue for such an investment. The plan is well thought out. I encourage you to adopt the resolutions before you. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
Thanks, Patty.
Okay, that's the only speaker I had signed up on this, and so unless there's any other questions by board members, motion would be in order.
I'd like to move the item.
Okay. Moved and seconded then to approve the various actions as outlined by the clerk and elaborated upon by Mr. Ross. And so with that, if there's nothing further, please vote.
Unanimous vote.
All right. Banner day for SHRA. Thank you, all your staff and all the partners in this. So good. All right. Trying to get back on schedule a little bit. We've got next item, please.
Okay. Item 50 is the County Service Area 1, adopt an ordinance providing a procedure for collecting street and safety lighting charges in CSA 1, conduct a public hearing on the fiscal year 17-18 service charges, confirm the engineer's report, and adopt service charges for fiscal year 17-18.
Okay, Mr. Childers, are you going to introduce this?
Chairman Natoli, members of the board. I'm Russ Childers with the County Department of Transportation.
Yeah, I don't know if that mic's on. Is that mic on?
Am I close enough?
There you go, Russ. Yeah,
oh,
thanks.
There we go. All right. County Service Area 1, I got a brief PowerPoint presentation here. What we're asking you to do today is to adopt an ordinance changing the method for calculating the inflation factor for a couple of our service charges. We would like you then to open the public hearing, accept testimony regarding the service charges for 17-18, and then adopt the resolution approving the written report. Wow, how did we go that far? These are out of order.
Hey, you can just tell us.
Here we go. County Service Area 1 funds the operation and the electrical costs for streetlights and highway safety lights in the county of Sacramento. It's only the unincorporated area, not in the incorporated cities of Rancho Cordova, or I'm sorry, Rancho Murrieta. See if we can go there. Hey, standard service charges. An affirmative vote of the benefiting property owners would be needed to raise these service charges. These charges have remained unchanged for 20 years. For next year, they're, as seen in this slide, they are not changing for 17-18. Enhanced and decorative service charges are applied to new properties. These service charges have an inflation factor. The proposed fiscal year 17-18 service charges are as shown. Now, let's see if it goes to the slide that I want to go to. Yes. The inflation factor for the enhanced and decorative streetlight service charges was established back in 2006. It was the higher of the consumer price index or the SMUD electrical charges, or 5%. And so what happened is the service charges were increasing every year, but without respect to either the consumer price index or the electrical rate service charges. We would like to change the ordinance so that those service charges, the calculation of the inflation factor is consistent with other assessment districts or service districts countywide. So we want to use the consumer price index or the electrical rate increases with a cap of 5%. So that's the ordinance modification we're asking you to make today. Let's see if we go to the right one. So, actions requested. Please adopt the ordinance change, modifying the inflation factor for the enhanced and decorative rates. We'd like you to open the public hearing and accept testimony, if any, and then we would like you to adopt the resolution approving the written report and the service charges for fiscal year 17-18.
Okay. Thanks, Russ. Quick question. So in changing it from using the three applied factors with a minimum of 5%, you're going to go to the two applied factors and maximum, or a maximum of 5%. So what triggered the change?
The infrastructure finance section conducts these ballot procedures that put properties and developments into the various districts and service areas, and they noticed the disparity between our County Service Area 1 and the other districts and asked us if we should have, when we put this in place, been consistent with the other districts in how we calculated the inflation factor.
Okay. All right, so this will bring us in line with the way we're doing other lighting districts that are brought in with new development. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not lighting districts, but like the landscape districts or some of the other districts, they don't have a minimum.
They have a maximum.
They have a maximum.
Okay, all right. All right, thanks. Okay, any other questions? If not, then I will open the public hearing on CSA 1 with the ordinance changes outlined. Anyone wish to address this particular item? All right. Seeing none, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and we have the staff recommendation before us, which is to close the hearing and then to adopt the ordinance, which will provide for the procedure change as outlined in Mr. Childers' report. So, and also adopt the service charges for 1718. Motion? Chair would move. Okay, seconded. So it's moved and seconded. Nothing further by board members. Please vote.
Unanimous vote.
Okay, thank you, Russ.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. And I'll just note that I do have a couple of folks signed up, but if you want to address item 51, we're going to have a staff report and then hear from questions from board members and then go to members of the audience on the report that will be rolled out here in just a moment. So.
For item 51, you're acting as the Board of Supervisors and Sacramento County Water Agency. Report back on flood protection actions for the community of Point Pleasant and direct staff to proceed with various flood protection efforts for Point Pleasant and vicinity.
Okay.
Good morning.
Michael, just 1 second before you start. I just want to say I know that Diana White, you'd signed up to try to do an off agenda before noon. I would just say if you're still in the audience, we're probably not going to get to off agenda before noon. So if you'd like to come back this afternoon or wait until we're done, I don't know which one's Diana in the audience, but just wanted to note that. So, okay, Michael, sorry.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Technically, it is still morning.
It is.
And I'll do my best to be mindful of the time. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. It's actually just 5 graphics, so it's not a lengthy, wordy presentation, but it's intended to just give some relevance and reference to what's discussed in the staff report. On June 6th, we last presented to your board the ongoing discussion of flood fighting in Point Pleasant along Lambert Road, the status of McCormick-Williamson tract levees. The board directors come back to give an update on that, on the status of those items. And specifically, in that presentation and prior presentations, we've had discussions at some depth on decisions that were going to be made by the Nature Conservancy on the status of levee repairs on the McCormick-Williamson tract. These repairs as a result of a levee breach that occurred in February 2017. In addition, as has been suggested for some time, the proposed temporary flood fight barrier on Lambert Road in the vicinity of Snodgrass Slough. We completed analysis on that, and I'll get into some discussion of that item as well. And in addition, I'll provide you some information on the status of where we are with home elevation programs that has been previously established by your board. Again, this first graphic here is really just to lay out sort of the geographic setting for the subject we're speaking to. The green areas are the reclamation districts in the south part of the county here. The area highlighted, bounded by yellow or gold, is effectively the Point Pleasant community. It's not necessarily the official or formal boundary, but that's to reference Point Pleasant relative to everything else. Lambert Road runs along the south of Point Pleasant. The Franklin Pond area is east of the Franklin Boulevard Union Pacific Railroad corridor. It's just on the easterly edge of that green shaded Glanville tract area. Snodgrass Slough runs north-south through the middle of the green shaded area. You'll see the red circle with the number 2. That is the location of the suggested Lambert Road flood barrier. The circle with the red circle with number 1 points to 3 breach locations on the McCormick-Williamson tract. The red dot that's on the east and south corner is actually where the levee failed in February 2017. However, anticipating that breaches were made purposely on the southwest end of the island to mitigate any flood surge that might occur should the island fill up and then that west levee fail catastrophically. So when we're talking about levee repairs and the status of the breaches, those are the 3 locations that we're referencing. After the levees failed in February 2017, the Nature Conservancy, which currently owns the island and has been pursuing for 20 years or so a larger habitat project on the island, they were faced with the decision of whether or not to repair the levees to full height so they could continue to meet their obligations to other property owners on the island, as well as to continue to pursue their larger habitat project. In a prior meeting where staff and the community was in attendance, it was expressed pretty vigorously that repairing those levee breaks back to full height would not make sense, and it would negate any potential benefit that the existing breaches might provide for future storms. The most recent discussions that we've engaged with the Nature Conservancy, they've indicated that they're willing to repair those breaks, but to a distance that's probably 7 to 8 feet lower than the top of the levee. Thus, they're proposing to leave those levee sections lower, which will provide some level of ongoing benefit in terms of reducing upstream floodplain elevations. So that's where they've landed on their decision, and what we're going to be doing is, and we've discussed with them the idea of partnering with them, given that these breaches will be in place, though repaired to a lower elevation. That island will continue to be subject to flooding more frequently than otherwise they would have anticipated. So what we're suggesting is that the county would partner with them and provide some support for reclaiming or dewatering the island during future storm events while these interim repaired sections are in place. And I'll get into some detail on that.
Could I just ask you, Michael, on that without interrupting your presentation, but since you mentioned the point, then as you'll delineate that further as you go on, is there a thought that in the event that money wasn't needed to assist, assuming they could go forward the project, which was to obviously deconstruct a 3,000 foot length of levee both on the east side, I guess, and then provide for a weird structure, W-E-I-R,
right,
structure on the south end of the tract. Has there been some discussion about whether that could assist with advancing that project in the event that it wasn't used for dewatering, or I don't know how far you took the discussion? Clearly, you're going to hear from folks here today that whatever their views are about certain parts of this, I think it's been pretty consistent that work on McCormick Williamson would be of an assist, bigger or lesser depending upon where you are in the picture here. But so again, because I would just throw it out there. I don't know if staff felt they had the latitude relative to that point, but if you need to have direction around that as we come to a point of decision here later this morning or early afternoon, that I think that might be important, because it may help advance the work that obviously, and I want to thank you again personally, but certainly you members of your staff, and we'll hear from some of them today, for your efforts with regards to keeping those levees at the height at which, or at least close to what the breach is, which provides some level of relief, as you just mentioned. But as it relates to the $400,000 set aside, had you taken it beyond just the point of helping with the dewatering in the interim period, or as to maybe being of an assist long term with that?
Right, understand. The discussion didn't center around anything beyond this interim condition where they would be subject to flooding, and they would benefit from some reclamation restoration assistance during this interim period. And I'll speak from what I know with our conversations, the long-term implementation of their larger project is really hampered with I'd say process at the state DWR level. There hasn't been an indication that $400,000 would make or break them moving forward on it. But that's a discussion that would, have yet to materialize. If they were in that situation, then we would consider that, and we would bring that back to discuss. But it's certainly
I think it's worth considering. You and I chatted about this late last spring, that if there was some incentive that would assist, it doesn't answer all the problems, but it certainly addresses one of the issues, and it affects many folks besides those in Point Pleasant. That I think the call for the endowment by the Conservancy, which I have no idea what the price tag was on that, but again, if some ability to help advance this, recognize it's not our obligation, but that if it helps resident landowners and certainly farmers and homeowners and others, including public facilities like RCCC and so forth, then we might be well advised to try to further those discussions. You can recognize that may not be the key piece of it. So okay, thanks.
Okay. So moving on to the discussion of the potential Lambert Road flood barrier, call it a floodfight barrier or temporary barrier, but the idea is that early on, before an anticipated large storm, a temporary barrier might be erected on Lambert Road, the vicinity of Snodgrass Slough, intended to help hold back flood flows moving from south to north across over Lambert Road and into Point Pleasant. This is just a cross section. This is looking upstream, looking north, Lambert Road profile. You're looking at basically a 1,500-foot long string of K-rails that would be erected to help hold water back. The intent would not be that this would hold back each and every storm. It wouldn't be intended to hold back a 100-year storm. K-rails are about 32 inches tall, but the idea would be to help stem some flood flows from moving north into Point Pleasant earlier in a storm event. As you'll see, I'll go through the analysis. It does provide some impacts or some benefits in certain situations and impacts as well. But just in terms of what this project looks like, just imagine, a 1,500-foot long string of K-rails on the south edge of a two-lane road. So in August 10th this month, staff did a presentation of the analysis that they completed on the impacts of both the suggested barrier, as well as that in combination with the leaving the repaired levee sections lower on the McCormick-Williamson tract. What would that do to floodplain elevations in various locations of interest in this region? The first scenario that was modeled was simply, what if the levees were back at their full height and we had thrown up a barrier this winter for the February 2017 event? Indications are that 2 houses potentially would have been kept dry in this recent storm, which was about a 25-year event. It would also result in would have ideally resulted in water surface elevations increasing up to a foot, 1.1 feet, starting at Lambert Road, and about 0.4 of a foot as far down as Tyler Island. So that's just to show that in any given storm event, such a barrier would have some impact off-site. Barrier only was also modeled in.
You have a slide, don't you, Michael? You might want to bring that up.
Yeah, let me
might
pull
help
it.
with your explanation.
There we go. Thank you. So the barrier-only option was also modeled in a 100-year event to see what it would do, and again, it indicates that it would provide some benefit to Point Pleasant in terms of reducing the number of structures flooding, but there's also an indication of downstream impacts in the nature of 0.5 or 0.6 of a foot further south along the reclamation districts. This barrier-only, though, scenario is unrealistic given that the McCormick-Williamson levees are currently breached, and as indicated by TN, the Nature Conservancy, they're going to remain breached. So this was just done to sort of establish on its own what that barrier might do. Staff looked at what are the benefits that we've actually should receive now because the breached levees on McCormick-Williamson are going to remain low. What does that do in a 100-year storm? What does that do to the 100-year storm elevations? And the analysis shows that it would cause an impact downstream because to the reclamation districts, and that's because water is flowing in and out of that island where it otherwise wouldn't have. But leaving those repaired sections lower also helps throttle control better the flow through that island. So while it would provide some attenuation and some decrease in the flood elevations, it also prevents a flood surge that might occur if the downstream levees were full height and they catastrophically failed after the island was full. So that's a benefit that they provide in contrast to having increased water surface elevations for the reclamation districts. And it's our understanding that they're aware of that, and they implemented these breaches, and they agree as well that the breaches should stay in place in the interim.
Just real quickly, for your calculation on 100-year water surface elevation, so you use it irrespective, because there are a number of watersheds that affect what happens in this part of the world. And so, you know, you have the Cosumnes and McCollum, obviously you have the whole Morrison Creek shed, you have the influences from the Sacramento River as well, some tidal influence. And so how does that calculate? Is it just about the amount of water that would pool, or where do you get, you say it's a 25-year storm with regards to what occurred in February, using that as the baseline. But the 100-year is the baseline. What is it? The 86 event, 97 event?
It's based on the statistical storms that we've seen.
Okay.
Generates a volume, and you have to
irrespective of the watershed. So whether it's coming from the north or coming from the east or up from the south.
So you have to consider the storm centering. Given that you've got multiple watersheds coming in, make an assumption on how that storm would track, the length of time, how much volume it would drop. So you're running that volume through all the constraints within that system.
Okay, so it's a volume calculation.
There's exactly. So if you look at, it's not just the peak flow, but there's also the volume, because we do have volume that gets stacked up depending on where there's constraints in the system. It's not. I guess you'd say it's a hypothetical 100-year. The 100-year. A 100-year storm event for modeling is never going to match what really might happen potentially in any given storm, but it is the basis that we would use for determining relative impacts in the floodplain.
Okay, and so just one other question then. If you use the event, which was certainly a serious one, we have folks here from Tyler and obviously from some of the other districts, and I know folks from Dead Horse have been involved, and likewise some of the other rec districts. So if you have a 25-year event, so was that factored into this model when you look at what the downstreams would have been relative to the impacts for the February event? You kind of did the Noberia, Floodberia, McCormick-Williamson, but you're using the 100-year as the baseline. So if you took that, calculating the volume, and called this year's storm a 25-year event.
What was run was the February 2017 event, conditions that we saw.
Okay.
My comment was that the 2017 event approximated to a 25-year, but that's not what you would pick as a standard 25-year event for modeling purposes.
Okay. So how about the numbers? I'm trying to get to the numbers you plugged in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe ask the question. I'm not sure what you.
Okay, well, the numbers with floodberry only show a 100-year water surface elevation and shows the downstream impacts.
Correct.
Increase or decrease or neutral. Similarly, for the other, as you go across the chart, you're using a 100-year water surface elevation.
Correct.
And is that the February storm under a different, so it's not?
No, it's not the February storm. It is looking on the record of rainfall events that we have. What is the statistical 100-year storm event? So it's not going to say this is the February 17 event. It's a larger event than that. It's a 100-year storm event, greater volumes.
Okay.
The comparison with the 2017, that was done simply to show, to provide the most relevance to what an actual storm event we just saw.
Okay, and the reason I asked the question, because we're going to be asking when you get down to your recommendation after we hear the testimony relative to going forward. And if, in fact, we authorize going forward with the environmental analysis around, floodplain Lambert, whatever that structure might be, I just want to be clear, the data that's going to be entered, you've done, and again, Cheyenne and others in your department have done good work here, but there would have to be some additional analysis if you're going to actually calculate, unless you're just going to use 100 years as a baseline all the way through, I guess, because you used the February storm as being most recent one, for purposes of...
For a CEQA analysis, we would use a 100-year event
That's what
as the
you
marker.
would use this data. Okay, I just wanna get some
Absolutely.
sense. Okay,
Yeah,
right.
that would be the standard for any analysis that we do.
Okay, thanks.
So again, by leaving the levee breaches repaired in a lower condition, we should realize a benefit of probably, and I'm talking about benefit to folks upstream and east of Union Pacific Railroad in the Franklin Pond area, half a foot reduction, because those barriers are going to be, those levees are going to be left low. That's what we had been striving for with the Nature Conservancy in having them not repair them to full height. So there is some benefit that's manifested by leaving them low. And again, that also allows water to move through the island and then impact the downstream reclamation districts with a somewhat higher water surface elevation, around 6-7 of a foot. However, along with that is a throttling of the flow such that you mitigate the risk of a catastrophic levee failure. Again, the reclamation districts implemented these breaches, and as they've expressed that they're comfortable with that, so they're comfortable with the decision that the Nature Conservancy is making there. Looking at the combination of the lowered repaired levee sections, and then what would happen if a flood barrier were erected in a 100-year event. The combination of these two, if you will. What it does reflect that downstream, starting south of Lambert Road, be about a 7/10 of a foot increase. And then when you go further down to Walnut Grove and Tyler Island, you're talking about 1.2 to 1.4 foot increase in the 100-year water surface elevation. So you've got the combination of the breaches allowing water to flow through the island into those reclamation districts sooner, and the barrier on Lambert Road holding volume to the south, again, stacking that up on those reclamation districts. So the analysis does show that there's a scale of impacts by, additive impacts by adding the barrier into the situation. But in combination, the barrier would potentially prevent flooding in 4 homes in the Point Pleasant area in a 100-year event, and the benefits of the breach, leaving the breaches low, are reflected in the Franklin Pond area by about a half a foot reduction. It doesn't take any structures out of 100% flood risk, but it does lower the water surface elevation. So you've got 2 components of activity. Each one really drives a benefit in one location. The barrier doesn't benefit the Franklin Pond location, doesn't harm it either. The McCormick-Williamson tract, lowered levee repairs, they benefit the Franklin Pond area. They don't really provide much benefit to Point Pleasant. So, but both of them collectively do have a compounding impact on the reclamation districts to the south.
I have a couple questions
Yeah.
about this. You're going on at some length, and it really has to do, to me, it doesn't sound like it benefits that many properties to do the barrier. And I've had experience with the barrier in my district, which where the neighbors were enraged because they got the opposite of a benefit out of it. So if for some reason the board were to go ahead with a barrier of some kind, how do you, liability is the question that comes up in my mind. And, after you have an event of 25 years, whatever it is, if there's flooding somewhere, it's obviously a very complex area. What if, what are the liabilities if the barrier causes flooding to other parts of the area, or if it doesn't work and causes worse, or maybe not worse, but flooding anyway, it goes over the barriers. I just doesn't, it's not very appealing to me from the standpoint of it's going to work and make everyone happy. And I all we do in closed session is hear lawsuits against the county, and so I'm curious about the liability if it causes flooding on other properties or the ones we think we were going to protect. And expectations of the homeowners in other places.
Well, we've identified our contemplated risk and the value of those properties that would be flooded by our actions. We would need to be reasonable in those actions. We're not liable for things caused by Mother Nature. We're liable for those things that we build, construct, bend, fold, and mutilate. So that would have to be part of the assessed cost, including the cost of insuring this risk and what the value of that would be.
So you're saying we would insure our way around the risk?
Well, it would be part of our...
And who would pay for that?
If we build something that fails, it would be a cost that we would have to recompense folks for that damage. At the moment, we haven't caused any damage. It's Mother Nature that's doing these things.
And that's my fear here. But you said we've figured that out already? I just didn't.
No, what I'm saying is that we've identified those properties that we would impact by this proposed action.
And the difficulty in identifying what that impact would be from a dollar standpoint is the impacts would be potentially related to the levees that are maintained by the reclamation districts to the south. We don't have a strong grasp of their system and the condition. That's something that they would be able to much better provide, but we would have an inherent understanding that there's a potential exposure if you take an action during a storm event and something happens.
So in addition to the homeowners, you have the reclamation districts that might be affected adversely.
And I don't see any direct impacts to individual homeowners, but there are properties that are protected behind those reclamation district levees that that's a potential. That's a difficult thing to actually numerically calculate out, and that's something that we would need to proceed forward as we're doing an environmental document to completely understand that cost.
Well, what happens, for instance, if we decided to do the K-bar and your recommendation is that we have an outside contractor on standby because our staff is busy countywide? What if the contractor doesn't show up and people have been counting on him? What happens then? Then is it a Mother Nature event that we thought we planned for but it didn't work? It seems like we're really raising expectations to a level that is potentially unrealistic here to me.
I did speak to the speculative nature of flood fighting, and in particular this location is susceptible to flooding from multiple directions, and depending on how any particular storm comes in and where that flood volume comes from, a barrier could potentially exacerbate a problem or create a problem. And it's absolutely true. But I brought this forward because it has been suggested, and we did complete the analysis, and I think it clarifies that there's some potential benefit. There's certainly some level of risk or exposure that's difficult to quantify.
Well, you didn't really say in a staff report. You didn't talk about exposure. So I mean. I
think that's
you're very clear about that.
Inherent, and we did discuss that, I think, the prior workshops where the off-site impacts and the related liability or exposure from taking those kind of actions can manifest themselves depending on how a storm event plays out. There's absolutely no assurance. I don't think flood fight activities go in with 100% assurance that it's all going to go the way you expect. So nothing that we would suggest, even with large-scale 100-year flood protection projects, there's always a level of risk. This one is not would not be something that we'd have a great handle on numerically calculating the risk, because so much of what could be at a potential impact that is outside of our purview. It's not part of our system, and not saying that it couldn't be done, but clearly there would be some work to calculate that. But underlying that, if we were going to move forward with it, and as council suggested, there would be some sort of insurance need to cover that risk, we would have to do that calculation, and the costs that would be part of the project cost and be funded from the Beachstone Lakes funds that we have available.
I would just add, I think Supervisor Peters said it is obviously very complicated and complex as it relates to where the influence of floodwaters come in. And again, I think during the flood fight, people are doing their best to manage what's coming at them and to certainly stay dry and protect their properties, and that's how the reclamation districts were organized to begin with, was to protect those properties and provide obviously the levees and other structures that are in place, pumps and such. I guess what occurs to me, though, is that what we have before us today is probably the most clear analysis over all my years on this board, but even going back to '86 when there was severe damage, and Steve Mello was here from Tyler Island, and they flooded in '86. And in 97, 98 events, and obviously what we had this past winter. And obviously this discussion has been before this board on numerous occasions, but not, I don't think, with necessarily with the clarity and the detail. And I think what's being put forth is for our consideration is cumulatively an assembly of information, some data, some facts, some projections about impacts. And I think the relevant point here, for at least for me, at least one of them is that the flood fight, and whether or not at this location, not unlike other locations where they have an organized district or otherwise, people may do it on their own homes, they may do it in their own reclamation districts, their own communities, and so forth. When things are busting loose, people are doing their best to stay dry and to hopefully not have negative impacts around their surrounding neighbors. And obviously what we're talking about, most of these areas, or if not all of them, are within Sacramento County, and we represent all of those folks. But I think that the conversation today, and certainly the any liabilities, risk, as well as benefits need to be weighed by this board. And again, in the past, we've taken the position that either we weren't going to do anything, or we were going to raise houses, or we were going to look at other alternatives. And we've spent money, time, effort, and a whole lot of brain power by folks in this room today, as well as many others, trying to look at what we might do. And I think what at least is before us today is opportunity to have that discussion in depth with the community, and we have a number of folks going to want to weigh in. But again, it's not without risk, and I think that's the whole idea, is that you manage risk in a flood fight. You maybe manage risk day to day, just in an area where you have wetted, areas that stay wet all year long, being in the rivers and certainly in the streams. So I think that your questions, certainly, Susan, are good ones that obviously we.
I think our job is to first do no harm.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the other people in the area that may end up with water inside their house because of this.
Well, I am too.
I mean, and I think that, working with the Nature Conservancy, and I think that's the best thing you've done here. Elevating homes is complicated with FEMA. I guess I've been through that too, and
yes.
Actually had FEMA came out and made big presentations to homeowners, and no one wanted to elevate in the end. But it looks like you've got a few that may have said yes.
Right.
Someone said yes a summer ago, and here
yes.
we are. And FEMA was going to move fast, so I guess fast is measured in years.
Fast is relative, apparently.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we've had the staff report outlines what the potential cost would be were we to deploy a barrier, and we've since got some information. If we had a contractor lined up to do it, probably the cost range that goes between $60,000 and $100,000 to implement a barrier. Now, that's from a county government perspective and contracting, and that entire process. Privately somebody might be able to do it for much less on their own, but that's not what we're proposing, and that's not what we're suggesting. So we're trying to characterize it in terms of the world, the point of reference, and the setting in which we have to carry out contracts and carry out actions as a county entity. So.
Just to be clear, that's a dedicated source of funding, at least.
It's a dedicated source of funding.
As we sit here today. And some of that money was set aside to actually do flood improvements. Actually, at one time, were mitigations from projects that were done upstream that would have raised Lambert Road, that would have had net impacts, obviously, downstream and upstream, would have put in additional pumps at the Sacramento River. It would have done a number of other things, and it actually provided for levees around the Laguna West community. And so I think that it needs to be the context over 25, 30, 40 years now of not only upstream development has been approved by this board and other jurisdictions within Sacramento County, impacts of uncontrolled streams and rivers like the Cosumnes, obviously the control mechanisms on the Sacramento and McCollum, what other folks have done to protect themselves, whether it be levee districts or otherwise, and encroachments that are sought at the time of a flood fight that we actually do issue to other entities who are recognized, and they're in straits where they need to protect their homes, their properties, and even I-5, which the state's been of no help in that regard. And I would be very frank to tell anybody that. I don't think they've been any help when it comes to the conversation about what might be done there. But so, I mean, there's a whole lot in here where you can even go back to no harm, is that when we approve projects, this board and previous boards, we made environmental findings that there wasn't going to be downstream impacts, and if so, we were going to mitigate for them. And part of the mitigation that was taken was dollars that were put in the bank that we're going to do future projects that no longer are either practical, feasible, and or have greater impacts than what we're talking about here today. And so I just want to put that in that context too, because certainly this county has had a hand in what goes on, both as a partner but also as someone who's approved many thousands of homes and upstream development that has impacts not just on Point Pleasant but certainly in other areas as well.
Now, and the idea of the larger project that's been discussed in over past boards, board makeups, has been determined to be infeasible from a financial standpoint and unmitigable in terms of its potential impact. What we're trying to do is continue on a path of, call it small wins, small improvements, small benefits, whatever we can garner in the near term using this limited funding that we have. And nothing that we would perceive in that vein is going to be ideal or all-encompassing. And even mitigating what might be the impacts of county over time from development, there's still flood risk that would be here. So we need to make sure that it's the county is one of many in terms of who exists and have impacts and move about within the floodplain in this region. So moving ahead, the cost of implementing such a barrier would be $60,000 to $100,000. We could get a contractor on queue to do that. Materials would have to be staged, and we would still be, this winter we would be in a position. What's happening with the storms? Do we go, no go? It's not 100% that we would do it. We have guidance in terms of forecasts and what those forecasts and what we anticipate that means in terms of elevations in the community, and we would seek to use that guidance to determine whether we should whether you would want to implement a barrier during an actual event, a pending event. And that's a calculus that happens every time there's staff in the Emergency Operations Center and we're facing a large storm coming on. So it's just not suggesting that, we're going to put the barrier up by a certain date and just leave it there. There's still going to be that decision process depending on conditions at the time. To try to wrap up the recommended actions, as I said, we would recommend supporting or providing a support piece for the Nature Conservancy in terms of restoration costs, dewatering the island should it flood in the interim because those levee breaches were repaired at a lower elevation. Something that would help facilitate, basically give them knowledge that they could recover from that and still move forward with their larger project. The suggestion would be $400,000, which was an amount that was discussed initially with the Nature Conservancy. What we'd be recommending is allowing me to continue with discussions and develop and establish an agreement on that basis to move forward so that we would be able to secure their leaving those levee breaches low. and then we would continue to facilitate and support any way we can. They're getting progress on the larger project. Again, on the flood barrier, I think we spoke to there's risk, there's unknown, there's speculation. I think we've identified some potential benefit and some potential risk. We could establish a contract for this winter. That's not a problem. We would still be faced with, again, do we pull the trigger or not? But at least the resources are in place. It's not an obligation, but we've at least acknowledged that we would be able to do it should we decide.
But as a part of that, you'd be seeking to begin the environmental review for...
I think it would make sense to move forward with that, to play that out, because ultimately if that's something that becomes desired as a more permanent activity, then I think we get into the context of, is it carried out by a separate reclamation district, et cetera? Because the county is not structured to be a flood fight entity, as reclamations tend to be. Just the scale and scope of what we cover and staffing doesn't provide for that. That's not the basic structure. Not that we don't flood fight in reality, but and then finally, I do want to, we do recommend also that we continue to proceed with the home elevations. We have been approved, our program has been established, including the parameters for elevating homes using the Beachstone Lakes funds. That's not something that we've done yet. We were hopeful, again, that the FEMA grants would come through. They were called immediate needs grants. They have not come through immediately, but there's still a need. So what I'm seeking now is...
Check the dictionary about what immediate means, huh?
Yes. I don't know that it's in federal code or how it's defined. But there are, I believe, 10 structures that are on the FEMA grant list that are within the authorized Beachstone Lakes Fund utilization area, if you will. We'd just like to proceed moving them over to that funding source and proceeding with the process of elevation.
Are you able to obtain reimbursement?
We may not. If we can transfer over, should the FEMA grants come in sometime as those are underway, and we can at least pick up some remaining costs, if not get reimbursement, that'd be ideal. But we don't know for sure. We're still trying to hear back that they've got all the information they need from us to move forward with the grant
Can our
application.
congressional representatives help out? I mean, obviously, you have Congressman Garamendi and others, Congressman Barra, I don't know, and Congressman McNerney, who, again, certainly know about the Delta, and I would hope, could weigh in with FEMA about, what immediacy means, and certainly, the work that we're doing throughout the county, but certainly in this portion of the county, southern part, to try to assist, folks through a program, and we're actually bringing dollars to the table as a part of that complement, particularly in the Point Pleasant, Franklin Pond area. So,
so if we can, for those Beachstone Lake properties, if we can simply proceed, we're going to move with the Beachstone Lakes funding to get them moving. Yeah. Otherwise, we may not be till 2019 before we see FEMA grant money actually getting something off the ground.
How much money are you asking to set aside from the funds?
Well, we've identified, I think, some upwards per elevation runs around 130,000. I mean, that's just, if you look at a cap.
So you're seeking about $1 million?
It could be about $1 million bucks, yeah.
Do you have our account balances for those funds available?
Yeah, it's about 4.6 right now. So again, it is a limited pot, and it comes in slowly with, we've got permit fees that come in to help contribute, but that's a limited pot. So every dollar we spend there, we, not likely to get replaced. Right. So we want to make sure that we're prudent when we do decide to spend that money. Okay. And we do really think that, even though no project, I've said before, is a 100% guarantee, even elevation's not a 100% guarantee. Regulatory elevations can change. They can be changed by FEMA. Storms can change what a 100-year elevation means. But it is by far the most secure way to protect a single structure. It's invasive and it's disruptive. But in the end, folks who have elevated, in our experience, we've done, I think, 75 or more elevations countywide. They don't regret doing it. because that provides a level of comfort moving it to the future in terms of their risk of flooding. So we try to emphasize that as the best approach, but it has come with some difficult impacts. I can summarize, recommend that you authorize the director working with county council to develop an agreement with the Nature Conservancy to provide $400,000, up to $400,000 for restoration costs should the McCormick Williamson tract flood because of the interim levee breach conditions. Should the board authorize the placement, authorize us to potentially place a barrier, that's really what that should say, then have us move forward with the CEQA process for such a project. We can't get the CEQA document done in time for this winter, so we're suggesting if you want us to go ahead and get things in place and set up, we'll proceed with the CEQA document and let that carry through over whatever timeline it takes, hopefully no more than 6 months. And then finally, just support structure elevation again as the most viable means for flood protection. Allow us to move over to the Beachstone Lakes funds for those 10 candidate properties that are in the Beachstone Lake area.
Okay. Just one comment. I know we got a number of folks who want to speak on this, maybe other questions by board members, but on the last recommendation to my question a moment ago, is there a way to at least seek some guidance, if that's the right word, from FEMA relative to the expenditure of those dollars and whether or not they would be potentially eligible for reimbursement? Because
absolutely. Can we ask? Yes. Can we get a definitive answer? We hope.
No.
But yeah, we'll certainly do that.
We ought at least create a record. Then I'd just say that of delay. Again, I mean, it may mean that we won't ever get the money, but I just think you need to have a record that reflects that we're taking local dollars entirely. That at least to get this going, so maybe by this construction season, those that choose to raise their homes could at least get some of that construction done. I don't know. It's getting late in the season now, but I would just want to make sure we have a record that bears that out. That
absolutely
we've asked and we've asked again and again, and we're prepared to bring dollars to the table to provide for that match and to assist homeowners and property owners. And if you check the calendar, winter's just a few months off. So,
right.
Okay.
And for other federal grants, we've been able to move ahead, and not necessarily home elevation, but we've been able to move ahead and then get reimbursement on costs that we expended up front. So I don't think that's unrealistic, but we'll actually absolutely get clarity on that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Any questions for Michael? Again, a lot bodied up in the report. So.
There's a lot behind it, and for the sake of not revisiting every prior presentation, time-wise. So.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Stand by. So, unless there's any other questions by board members on the staff report or anything that may be on your mind, we'll go ahead and hear from members of the audience, and we have a number of speakers here. So, I'll call them in the order they were handed to me. I have Ellen Georgie, followed by Pastor Neil Harrell and Bill Darcy and Steve Mello. And there's some follow-on to that. So those will be the first four.
Well, good afternoon, Member Natoli, or Chairman Natoli, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. From what I've listened to, it's clear that Member Peters is not enthusiastic about the flood barriers on Lambert Road because of the minimum or limited number of structures that it will benefit, and also because of the increase in flows downstream. I'd just like to expand a little bit on what Chairman Natoli talked about, where he talked about prior decisions affecting the Point Pleasant area, and go back even further and point out and remind the board that Point Pleasant is not in a natural floodplain. When Point Pleasant floods, it's not an act of nature. It's something that is constructed by man. It's the result of governments, reclamation districts, making decisions that adversely impact the Point Pleasant area. So when we're talking about remedies to the Point Pleasant situation, I don't think it's unfair to assert that some of the risk for remedying that situation should be passed downstream to our neighbors that put us in this situation to begin with. And in addition, addressing the report that staff provided, it seems to focus, if not entirely, certainly primarily upon salvaging structures. Point Pleasant isn't a high-density residential area. It's a rural community. People use their land there. When it floods, they lose access to that land. There's cattle on the land, there's dairy there. When it floods, cattle have to be herded up, they have to be boarded into trucks, they have to be transported to other locations and cared for at these alternate sites. There's an expense beyond just simply transporting them to these alternate sites. There's an expense to maintain them in these alternate sites. The dairy stock, when it has to be transported, moved, the same situation, they have to be loaded on trucks, they have to be moved, but it's also stressful to the dairy stock. They don't get milked as they should, so it stresses the stock out. So it's more than just a cost of relocation. It's more than just a cost of loss of revenues for the days that they're not producing. It has an adverse effect on the stock itself. So again, when you are considering the report that was provided to you, I would like you to, number one, remember that Point Pleasant does not reside in a natural floodplain. Our problems are all created by man. And two, there's more to consider than simply structures in the area. There are these other impacts that the report, for one reason or another, failed to include. And with that, I've said my piece, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate you being here today. Okay, next, Pastor Neil. Yes.
Permission to yield to Bud Hoppy when you finish speaking?
Yeah. I've got.
I'd like to hear from my colleagues, and I would speak last.
Okay. All right. We'll give the pastor the last word. How's that? Okay. Good. All right then. Bill Darcy. Bill, and then followed by Steve Bello, followed by Nick Kohlmeyer. Good afternoon. Bill.
Honorable Board and Chair. Name is Bill Darcy, and thank you for the opportunity to provide comments. I work for KSN Engineers, who represents both Reclamation District 563 Tyler and Reclamation District 2111 Dead Horse Island. I've been involved in South Sacramento County, North San Joaquin County, and the North Delta flood issues for 30-plus years. I'll be brief. Reclamation District 563 and 2111 Dead Horse generally supports the staff recommendations and findings contained in their August 22nd, 2017 report on flood protection actions for the community of Point Pleasant, with the exception of authorizing the installation of Lambert Road flood barrier. Installation should not be authorized until a comprehensive analysis has been performed. The analysis could be performed as part of CEQA and must include comprehensive hydraulic analysis of the entire Morrison Creek drainage area, the Cosumnes and McCollum River floodplains, and measure against historical flood events. It must also include impact analysis for lands within San Joaquin County, as well as downstream to Highway 12. While we have not had an opportunity to review the current modeling in detail, and it has not been peer-reviewed to our knowledge, indications are that the entire flood dynamic of the region has been slowly modified over 30-plus years. These changes have resulted in impacts to areas in excess of what we have seen in the past. For example, water surface elevations in the Franklin Pond and Point Pleasant areas seem to rise much faster and earlier in the 2017 event than in past events. These changes need to be understood regionally rather than isolated subregions in order to perform comprehensive flood improvements. That will benefit all and avoid adverse impacts to other areas. Isolated fixes that provide little benefit and create substantial added risk elsewhere is not how flood control should be approached. Therefore, authorization of Lambert Road flood barrier should only occur after the comprehensive analysis occurs. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate your comments. Thanks for your work, too. Okay, Steve, and then Nick, and then Wal Hoppy. Hello, Steve.
Chairman Natoli, thank you. Supervisors, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm wearing my sunglasses because I got my eyes dilated today. A little.
You didn't look at the eclipse without your
pretty weird. Never had it happen before. But at any rate, I'm Steve Mello. My wife and I own property on Tyler Island. A family-owned company that we own part of, Mello Farms Inc. owns property on Tyler Island, and Glanville District, District 1002. On your graphic, it showed south of Lambert Road. I'd like to point out that Tyler Island protects basically the farm support industry for the North Delta, including a chemical company, fertilizer company, tire shop, et cetera, et cetera. In the 1002 area, you have Wilbur Ellis's chemical company there and Highway 5. While I know Walt and the folks up at Point Pleasant and have interacted with them over the years, I do not oppose anybody protecting themselves, but we do need to consider fully the impacts, and so the CEQA documents have got to be really run through. What I've noticed, and this is a very dynamic system, I've been through flood events in 83, 86, 97, et cetera. 17, the system reacted way differently than I've ever seen it before. And I really think that these changes are going to continue to happen. Now, why is the system reacting so differently? You know, there are upstream levee improvements, RD 800, excuse me, the development in the Morrison Creek area. I think one of the big things is the Cosumnes River Preserve. There's been a riparian forest built between Franklin Road to the west of Franklin Road and east of the East Levee and McCormick-Williamson. The Franklin Pond should not have gotten as high as it did this year without having increased surface elevations downstream. The volumes in 17 were about the same as the volumes in 86 coming down the Cosumnes. Yet our elevations, our water surface elevations on the north and south fork of the McCulney didn't get as high as they did in 86. Something is constricting. I don't know what it is, I'm not an engineer, but I certainly believe that this project needs to be fully vetted. We need to look at the historical aspect going back, as Don, you talked about stuff going on for 25, 30 years. You know, Walt Hoppy, Bud Hoppy will tell you, our district has raised our levees, et cetera, et cetera. We put a muscle wall up this year on Tyler Island. The fact of the matter is the water never got as high as 86, so those things didn't come into play. So why? I think we need to understand the system, understand the dynamics of the system, and understand that the system is going to continue to change. So while, even as president of RD 563, and I am charged with protecting life and property, the eastern portion of Walnut Grove, the commercial district on the island, and umpteen houses that are on the island, I don't have any problem with people protecting themselves, but we do need to consider all the impacts. So thank you very much for your time and allowing me to speak here today.
Good. Thank you, Steve. Okay, next, Nick Kohlmeyer, followed by Walt Hoppy, followed by Diane Kirkham, and then Pastor Hurrell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Nick Kohlmeyer. I'm an attorney at Desmond, Nolan, Leveich, and Cunningham here in the Sacramento area. Represent Walt Hoppy, who's a landowner in Point Pleasant and someone I assume the board's familiar with at this point. First and foremost, just want to say that Mr. Hoppy does appreciate the county's consideration that the area is not subject to historic natural flooding, as has been evidenced through its making funds available for insurance funding, as well as potentially making funds available for some of these other projects, including raising homes. However, the supposed remedies that have been suggested thus far still do not take care of the underlying issue, which is the flooding is still going to continue to occur, and as long as that flooding continues to occur, the county is going to be liable for damages. I know that this liability issue has come up, and the law in the state is abundantly clear that private property that's not subject to historic natural flooding cannot be used as a retention basin, and property owners cannot be expected to bear the burden of that for the benefit of the public good. As long as this property floods, liability to the county is going to continue. Also, these properties in the Point Pleasant area will not be allowed to be put to their highest and best use. They will experience diminution in value in perpetuity as long as this flooding does continue. And so for that reason, really the only way to make these homeowners in the area whole, and from the county's perspective, avoid liability, is to get rid of the flooding as a whole to the point where no property in the area floods anymore. Understand it's an exceedingly complicated issue. However, Mr. Hoppy would encourage the board to work towards any sort of solution that discontinues the flooding in the area, which will, both alleviate the liability to the county going forward in the future for any, foreseeable takings that will no longer occur, as well as allow the property owners in the area the free and unfettered use of their property, which, is guaranteed to them under the law. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, next, Walt, and then Diane. Good afternoon, Walt.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon,
Member of the board, Walt Hoppy, 11556 Fog Road, Elk Grove, California. I guess I'm going to be limited to 3 minutes, so I guess I'll have to change my presentation a little bit. It would be somewhat longer than that. I've given you a handout of the issues that I was going to cover. On August 10th in Point Pleasant, Sacramento County did a presentation somewhat more extensive than what they gave here today. And there was a number of points that I wanted to cover from that presentation.
Well, if I yielded you 2 more, could you do it in 5 minutes, you think, if I give you 2 more minutes?
Well, I'll give it a shot.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a little more time then, because, again, I know this issue has been one that's obviously you've spent a lot of time on, so I'm going to reset the clock.
Do we have an overhead projector?
Okay.
I think you folks have seen this before, but basically, this is the area that flooded in 2017. This area is called Franklin Pond. That is the result of water from the McCollamy and Consumines water that backs up behind the levees of these reclamation districts and floods this area, flowing far to the north, up, which would be at a higher elevation. Basically, it's some 4 miles north to south that this water flows. The other area is the Beachstone Lake area. We get water from the Morrison Creek Basin. We get water through the railroad here at Lambert Road, and we also get water coming back over the Lambert Road structure. And that is the area that they were talking about putting a barrier. Sacramento County did this analysis, which was presented to us on August the 10th. This water comes from the Morrison Creek Basin, which contributed some 18,400 acre feet during the 2017 flood. Some 11,560 acre feet came from south to north during that same flood, and some 4,600 came in from the east, from the railroad, that water that backs up from the Franklin Pond. With the Lambert Road barrier, it would cut that down to 23 acre feet, or some 11,000 acre feet less would enter the Point Pleasant Beachstone Lake area with the barrier. And that equates to about 1.5 foot lower water elevation. So in 2017, if the barrier had been put up, it would have lowered the flood elevation in the area about 1.5 feet. This water that enters from the east.
Just move the graphic up just a little bit so we can see the lower part of it.
What's that?
Can't hear you. Oh, I was just going to say, move the graphic up just a little bit there. Yeah, there you go, so we can see the whole thing.
The water that enters from the east into this area creates a higher elevation because there's a barrier of I-5 and the frontage road, which I've brought to the attention of Sacramento County over a number of years, since 1987, and it's never been fixed. But if that were corrected and the flow capacity increased here, this water coming from the east would drain into this larger area, and it wouldn't create those higher elevations there. The elevation here was like 2 foot higher than the elevation over here, and that's because of the restrictions of the I-5 and the frontage road at Kestrel Lake Road. Back in '97, there was a discussion about the barrier at at Lambert Road, and Chief Counsel Ryan asked Supervisor Natoli, and Supervisor Natoli asked the Public Works Agency to look into this, and they were supposed to come to some conclusion and the articulation of the judgment applied to permit or not permit flood fighting within public right-of-way, and an assurance that such judgment is evenly applied. Because the reclamation districts are allowed to flood fight, but they wouldn't let us flood fight either in '97 or 2017, but the reclamation districts do on county roads. And there is an inequity there that I think should be addressed and corrected. I mean, if Sacramento County, if you have to have a CEQA document to do flood fighting on Lambert Road, then you should have a CEQA document to do flood fighting on other county roads in the area.
Well, I'm going to have you summarize. If you can summarize your presentation, Walt, I'll give you the extra time. So.
Okay. There's one other thing in the information that you were given for the 100-year downstream impacts with both the Lambert Road and the McCormick-Williamson. It shows the higher elevations, but the FEMA flood map has far higher elevations there already than what the result of the 100-year water surface. For all of these, it's 18 feet already, where it's 16.9. The only one that is even close to what the existing firm maps show is down at Tyler Island, and the firm map shows 14, and the result was 14.1. So it's the only one that's close. Their levees have to be higher than this in order to qualify for disaster assistance. I guess my main concern would be this. This is a little diagram of the Point Pleasant area with some houses raised and some not raised. The property value would be greatly diminished, and emergency services would be negatively impacted. It's 2 to 3 miles for emergency services to get to those houses, and it just seems that that's not something that should happen. If you wouldn't allow houses to be built in a lake, there's no way for these people to receive emergency services once it floods around their houses. And you're going to elevate their houses and expect them to stay there, or do you expect them all to leave when flooding occurs? Flooding is going to occur. So in summary, I think we should go ahead with the CEQA document. I still am in favor of a raised Lambert Road because it does give us some protection, better than nothing. But the real problem is downstream and the McCormick-Williamson tract and Tyler Island, Staten Island. Something has to be done down there to get the water out of the area. And if the county doesn't pursue that, nothing will ever get done. Okay. I thank you for your time, and I'm sorry that I went over so far, but...
All right, thank you, Walt. Okay, thank you, Walt. Okay, next, Diane Kirkham, and then Neil. Those are the last two speakers. So if anybody else intended to address the board on this, I don't have a forum, but so Diane and then Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. My name is Diane Kirkham. I am a resident of the Franklin Pond area, which is, of course, southeast of the Point Pleasant area. I'm here to comment specifically on recommendation number 1. Relative to the McCormick-Williamson tract. We were absolutely flabbergasted a couple of months ago to find out that the Nature Conservancy was choosing at that time to raise those levee breach levels all the way back up to the previous levee height. But now we understand that the Nature Conservancy is planning to leave the breach repairs at a medium height level, which we believe substantially improves our flood safety. And I wish to thank both the staff from the county, the Nature Conservancy themselves, the reclamation districts that are adjacent, as well as Chair Natoli for his leadership in this area, for the recommendation item number 1, which seems to lead to a cooperative agreement for leaving those levees in place in a way that will benefit our flood safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, and Pastor Neal is our last speaker on this, and then we'll bring back to the board for discussion and
Come on.
My name's Neil Harrell. I pastor the Point Pleasant United Methodist Church at 3329 Point Pleasant Road. I keep Captain Joshua Rubenstein's card from the CSD district in my phone at all times because he's the one who calls me when they need to set up a mobile command post and set up resources in the Point Pleasant area during flooding. What I was doing just a moment ago was offering my brother, Bud Hoppy, the opportunity to use my time. And he elected to let me speak, so I thank you for this 3 minutes. I appreciated your enthusiasm when the arts presentation was going on, and I appreciated the sense of urgency that I saw and the expedited handling of the homeless issue, which is critical matters. I noticed that all of your heads looked up when the lawyer spoke and there were words of money being involved or of legal liability. I noticed all the heads popped up then, and then I noticed they went back down when it went different directions. You measure water levels, which seem to have changed a little in the past couple of weeks, but that's okay. You measure costs, but what I continue to notice you fail to do, and this is an area where the 5 of you fail to measure human costs. You do not measure what it does to these people's hearts and their souls and their minds. Forget their pocketbook. People are breaking out there. This flooding is breaking people's souls. And I'll tell you what, when it's a God-made flood, no amount of flood fighting is going to be any good, but this is something that we've done. I remind you that you are public servants. You are public servants. And those of us who call Point Pleasant home, and whoever poorly named the Franklin Pond area, we are the public. Granted, we're not the rich, and we're not the famous, and we're not the powerful. But you know what? We still matter. Even though your treatment of us over the past 30 years with this flood issue would speak otherwise. We are your public. We're asking you to fight for us this time, to do what's right and not what's expedient. Stop telling us we matter. I beg you, show us that we matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay. That's the final speaker on this matter today. I would bring it back to my colleagues for questions. I do have some comments I'll offer in a moment, but any questions of staff on?
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson, on the FEMA funds that might be available for raising homes, those homes are not required, I mean, are the homes required to be elevated? It's the choice of the homeowner.
Correct.
I
The
remember
opportunity,
that from my flood
the
days.
opportunity is there. So that is the choice for a homeowner to make, whether they want to participate or not.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, then I want to maybe just, again, I recognize the hour is late, but I think a very important topic, and one obviously has gotten our attention here today, but certainly I think as many of the speakers have spoken, they are part of the fabric that constitute the communities that are part of this county and have been for generations, and whether they be in the Delta or in the Point Pleasant area or Beachstone Lakes or Franklin Pond, they are, our constituents. And again, there's this issue. If it was easily addressed, probably would have been addressed some time ago. But I think what at least is before us today is a step forward, and I appreciate the fact that folks have spoken to us and certainly participated in the community forums that we've had regarding this. And I think as the last speaker delineated, anytime there's not just a flood threat, but certainly the impacts of flooding and the flood fight, as it's known, goes on. Folks in this room and many others stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder with each other, and one coming to grips with whatever they can do to prevent that at the time, but obviously if it comes to pass, then helping to as a community recover from that. But I think when you have the frequency of flooding that has occurred, this time twice for some of the homeowners in the Point Pleasant area, and obviously others who've over time have been flooded, maybe with less frequency, but maybe greater or lesser impacts. It's not a pleasant thing. It's one that I think that public agencies respond to the call to assist in the recovery and sometimes in the flood fight. But as I have said in previous hearings, that I'm of the belief that we need to make some decisions around this matter, and I appreciate the work that certainly Mr. Peterson and Water Resources staff and working in concert with folks here in the audience, but certainly Mr. Gill, I appreciate the charge that you gave to county staff to bring before this body an opportunity to not just advance the discussion, but to, I think, hopefully address the issue, if not wholly, but certainly at least in part, and to begin to move in a direction that I think at least provide some equity when it comes to an issue that this board, this county, and again, I don't implicate all of us by this, but certainly as a board of supervisors, I've been with this county long enough and I've seen enough decisions, certainly in the upstream corridor that has a large part for many years was under the control of the county as related to land use, making decisions that have reflected certainly some addressing of the volume of water that comes from the Morrison Creek shed, but nonetheless approving, as I said, thousands and thousands of acres of development, going all the way to beyond Sunrise Boulevard to areas that are immediately adjacent to Franklin and to Point Pleasant. Likewise, we've been a partner, I believe, and certainly in working with our reclamation districts, as represented obviously by Mr. Mello and his colleagues here today, and trying to seek relief and assistance whenever possible from state and federal entities. But in large part, when it comes to Point Pleasant, there's been money set aside. There's been deliberations by this board. We had discussions certainly in the town hall setting and communities, but very little has been done, with the exception of certainly some of the work that brings us to today's discussion that provides some engineering data, looking at alternatives. And I think this is an opportunity for this board to, one, to do an environmental vetting, recognizing that the law and some court decisions may have changed as it respects to, what you can do within the framework of whether it's flood fighting or a project as it might be categorized. But I think what the staff is bringing to us with the elements as it relates to certainly number one, the McCormick-Williamson tract, I think that agreement is well placed, and I think that lowered elevation will not only impact, I think, in a positive way. And, it can be measured obviously in the size of the storm, and whether it's downstream at Tyler or Dead Horse, or certainly upstream in the Franklin Pond, or potentially even in the Lambert area a bit. That's a good thing, and I think we got to continue to press the state and work with the Nature Conservancy and anybody else on seeing to it that what the plan that was outlined, and some of that was with public dollars, to see to it that is actually followed through on, because we know that would provide some level of relief there with McCormick-Williamson, and likewise Staten would have assisted, but I think the chances for that are probably much more difficult. But nonetheless, getting the water out when it does come at you very quickly is an important part of it, and when it stacks up, it puts pressure on the levees and certainly on the communities, and as well as the forces upstream that can't get out. And I think some things have changed. I think that was highlighted, and so we need to continue to work within the context of those state and other entities to see what we can do for things that are upstream, maybe in the Casumas and the McCollum corridor, and what's happening right there at I-5 and in the Casumas Preserve, which again this county's been a part of that creation of that, and have approved environmental documents that have allowed for breaking of some historic low-lying levees and planting of trees to establish a more natural habitat down there, but that may have consequences that probably need to be analyzed. But on number one, I think that's a good move, and I think we got to press further to see if that would help advance, as I asked questions of Mr. Peterson, to see if whether it's the $400,000 for the interim approach, but to work in that deconstruction that would actually provide for what the plan has long been on McCormick-Williamson. As it relates certainly to the Lambert Road recommendation, or at least the choices given to this board, as I've said here in these chambers on a number of occasions, and I appreciate those who are shown to maybe some downstream impacts, concern about us being, ready this season to potentially call into action a flood fight. But I think that's one of the things that may drive this conversation along more quickly. And again, whether that trigger ultimately is pulled or not to do a flood fight, I think standing ready and staged is important. I think it sends a message certainly to folks in the Point Pleasant community that we'd be willing to at least consider that and not just talk about it at the time things are busting loose. And obviously we have to weigh the impacts, and whether it's the downstream or upstream or what consideration, but I think being ready makes sense, and it's not to get out ahead of an environmental document. I think we need to do a full environmental analysis, and again, what risk or challenge it may subject us to. I calculate that into my thinking, but I think that at least from the standpoint of coming into the 2017-18 season, we ought to be ready, and we ought to accelerate where possible the environmental review and do the analysis as suggested by some in the audience. So I would be supportive of doing that and being staged and ready, at least so there's the ability at that point to make the decision by this county, working with the communities, all of whom certainly are represented in the 5th District. And then lastly, I think the home raising has been a bit controversial, I think, for some of the reasons that Mr. Hoppe pointed out, not because you don't want to protect the primary investment on a lot of those properties, but in a rural setting, I think it becomes a bit difficult, not impossible, and it doesn't speak to the outbuildings, to the wells, to the barns, to the livestock areas and so forth that are impacted. And there's no question that when it comes, and moving dairy cattle and other livestock becomes obviously an obligation, but it certainly becomes a burden to some degree because of the costs associated with that. We're not going to solve that, obviously, with the discussion we're having here today, but I think it's a recognition that those pursuits are just as valuable as anything but people do in a more urban environment, that those rural environments are important, not just from the standpoint of the livability and the open space, but for the income, and whether it's in the Point Pleasant region or down in the islands, we have some of the most productive farmland in the entire world, and we have people who have for generations farmed and made it their life. And I just think that we need to recognize that when the floodwaters come, it's of great impact. And so I think that it's not just about raising houses, and I think we take the local dollars and spend them and aren't reimbursed, and obviously it may dilute the ability to do something in the future that would require multiple millions of dollars. But at this juncture, we have folks who are willing to raise their structures, I think, and to assist. Some who have, I think, may have even postponed in event this might come through, some of the work that would have been done to reconstruct or rebuild after the January and February flood events. And so I think it's prudent to offer that, and but to, I think, press through whatever quarters we can our federal representatives to take seriously what immediate means and to assist this community, and also reimbursement to folks who've had to flood fight. I mean, that's, we just closed out the disaster declarations on this morning's agenda, and here it is, nearly the end of August, and some of those have been ongoing for 8 months now. And supposedly that's a process that provides some immediate relief and reimbursement, and folks are doing not only repairs but preparing obviously for this next winter season. So I'm supportive of the recommendations. I think that the recommendation 2 obviously would require a good deal of prudence, and I think reliance on data that may be breaking loose very quickly. But I have confidence in Mr. Gill and working with not only our engineers but engineers from other areas. And there was a lot of cooperation this past season, in looking at it. And I think that if we have to make that call, then we'll address it at that time. And that may not make some folks in this audience real comfortable, but I think it also puts some onus on us to do our best to try to complete the environmental and engineering work that we require to look at whether that would be a long-term a placement of some sort, and certainly the impacts both downstream as well as upstream. So I support the 2 recommendations and endorse the going forward with the environmental document on the Lambert Road flood fight, and would also be supportive of having a standby contract, if that's what it is, for the flood fight in the event that's needed, and hopefully it won't be. But again, if we get to that juncture, we'll cross it when we get there. So that's my view, and I just want to hear from my colleagues.
Mr. Peterson, the CEQA document would address all the potential upsides and downsides of a barrier?
Yes, that's correct.
So other communities that would be affected, as I described my thoughts before, that would be addressed in it?
Yes.
And as I understand it, this area is not eligible for SAFCA kinds of work out there to protect it?
Not specifically, but that doesn't mean that we can't work with SAFCA to see if there's some way to tie them in. But this is not an area where SAFCA funds can be directly, is my understanding. But we can discuss that directly with SAFCA staff and see if there's a way that we can bring them in.
I would have thought that would have been one of the first things we did.
Well, we've discussed in the past. They've not stepped in and said, yeah, we'll lead on a project or lead on funding something. But I think we can revisit that with them.
But just to be clear, though, they set aside funding for the flood insurance, because there was a downstream impact when they did the South Streams group.
Correct.
In the area, in the Freeport area and the upstream of I-5, and so they set aside,
The intent of the set aside was to generate enough revenue to pay for the flood insurance premiums, reimburse us for that, and at some point use that towards a larger project. And that's still, potentially in the offing. So they do still provide that reimbursement for the flood insurance premiums that we pay. And that if we were able to identify a large-scale project that we could support that would provide benefit, they'd be able to contribute that.
Okay.
But that's the context of,
that's not a
their
firm
involvement. Exactly.
Cover the flood insurance, but there's no firm commitment for any
Right.
downstream project, to Ms. Peters' question. So
the CEQA review process would be paid for out of the $4.5 million in your set-aside budget? Okay, well, I can go ahead with the CEQA review process, but I cannot vote for a temporary flood barrier this year without the information provided by the CEQA document, just so you know.
Okay. Any other thoughts? I appreciate Ms. Peters' comments because we do diverge on that point. I just think having an on-call contract, and again, we'll have to make a determination at the time. We made that call in other flood events and said no, we won't place it. And
we just had numerous people say that they are very concerned about that, and I know you've got kind of equal divisions, but I just think you're inviting trouble between neighbors and for the county if you have to put that up on a temporary basis without CEQA documentation.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? If not, then I would make the motion. I don't know, again, if I recognize you support the CEQA document, but I guess I would make the motion that we would include the CEQA document and also an on-call contract for flood fight for the 2017-18 winter season.
Second.
And could I offer a substitute motion that we do that without this year's temporary barrier contract?
Second. Okay, all right, we have a substitute motion that would include the staff recommendation without the on-call contract for temporary flood fight. So that is the substitute motion, and we'll I guess call the question on that one first. So put the vote board up.
The motion carries with Supervisors Cerna and Natoli voting no. Oh.
I guess my recommendation to staff is you better kick it in gear with the CEQA document then.
Understood.
Seriously, like
No,
this afternoon. Because if the rains do come, we may have avoided some conflict with folks, but I can assure you that folks will be negatively impacted. That is a known. So, okay. All right. If there's nothing further on this item, then we will proceed with items 1, 2, and 3 with the exception of an on-call contract for temporary flood fight. And I would ask you please get the board apprised. So
we will.
Okay. Is that all the agenda items for this afternoon? I mean, for this morning, with the exception of the
34 and 35.
Okay, we do have some folks that have waited for off agenda. I trust maybe we should take those, and then we'll take a lunch break and come back. So, thank you all for being here today too on that item. All right, Diana White. Diana had asked to be here for noon, and then there's a couple other presentations too. So, Ms. White.
Hello, Chairman Natoli and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. I'm here representing the Association of Behavioral Health Contractors. We were thankful to the Department of Behavioral Health for recommending a 2% COLA for contract providers this year, and understand that wasn't recommended for funding. Currently, area contractors provide 80% of the behavioral health services for some of Sacramento County's most vulnerable citizens, and we represent a lower cost solution to providing those services. Due to flat budgets and rising costs, those individuals are increasingly served by staff who are taking on second jobs to make ends meet. Additionally, our crisis services are often staffed by individuals who are making what you would make in a fast food place, at or just above minimum wage. This has resulted in employees leaving the field, rapid turnover in our safety net services, the hiring of less experienced employees, some positions going unfilled, much difficulty recruiting and retaining psychiatrists. Additionally, we are also a big link in the homeless chain. As I'm sure you all know, many of the individuals who are homeless on the street also suffer with mental illness. When we serve those individuals, we're getting them housed and we're providing the supports to keep them housed. And that suffers when we don't have the positions filled to be able to do that. We believe that continuing the pattern of Flat budgets ultimately leads to increased costs for Sacramento County. When services are compromised, we see higher psychiatric hospital rates, more involvement with the criminal justice system, as well as, more potential homelessness. In light of this, the association requests reconsideration of the 2% COLA for behavioral health providers, and I very much appreciate you being able to hear that today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Diana. And as you probably well know, we'll be taking our final budget deliberations starting on September 6th, and I know you've corresponded on this previously. Certainly, your being here today raises that issue, and that'll be the time we'll probably take up any further discussion about that. But appreciate what the work is done, and I think the dilemma that it poses for a lot of the folks working in that area. So, okay.
Thank you. I also brought a copy of the letter that we sent to the board.
We can make sure that gets circulated to board members. Okay. Thank you so much for your patience as well. Okay. I have Andrew Keller on behalf of the Children's Coalition, and Andrew, I know you submitted this, and then Mr. Saunders, Jim Sanders after that. So, okay.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Andrew Keller. I'm here on behalf of the Sacramento County Children's Coalition, and as the chair of the Policy and Advocacy Committee, I'm here today to deliver a letter of support that I believe you have on your desks and an attached report on behalf of the coalition with two topics. One, we'd like to express our support for your recommendation to fund CPS staffing increases in support of continuum of care reform efforts. And then two, and the focus of what I'm going to be here today is to respectfully request your reconsideration of funding for specialty mental health services and wraparound services for kids that are impacted by CCR reform. A little bit of background on CCR reform. It's a legislative package that was passed and implemented as of January 1st this year. I'll come back to that, but just to be clear, it's happening now. And the goal of that legislation was to improve and reduce the use of congregate care for dependent youth, in other words, foster children in group home care settings. The theory of action behind that reform is that children do better in non-group settings, per research. And then number two, that children need better services at all levels of care, not just in group homes, but in those foster families. The actions that were taken legislatively to implement those changes are twofold. One, that to transition group homes from group homes into short-term residential therapeutic placements. And the impact there is a cap of 6 months that children can be in these environments. And then number two, to create a unified resource family approval process for all types of foster families and folks that are involved in that service provision to kids. The impact, starting again 8 months ago in January, is that group home providers and foster family types now have a new set of standards that they have to meet for those per the resource family approval process. Number two, that mental health services are at the core of those processes, and now the higher standards that they're going to have to meet, and that's intentional per the research. And third, that the kids impacted by this legislative package are more in need of the support and more difficult to place. And again, we're talking about kids in group homes who are now meeting this 6-month cap to be transitioned into a family. So we have the recommendations in the report that's attached there for your consideration, but focusing on the two budget items I mentioned earlier, I want to share a few things for you I want to underscore a couple of things as you reconsider the mental health services, the specialty mental health services for those kids, and the additional wraparound capacity. 3 points and 4 items of data. Number one, kids that are impacted by that continuum of care, as I said before, are most in need of mental health services that would be provided by both of those items. Number two, that those kids, when they move from group homes to those families, that's an additional stressor. So the population that requires the most amount of mental health services now has an additional stressor placed in their lives. So that further emphasizes the importance of those services. And then the foster family agencies and the group homes that are impacted now have to meet this higher bar of providing more mental health services for those kids. So the data that I'll share in support of this are that 23 group homes and 43 foster family agencies are impacted by this. 3 group homes, 3 family agencies total are contracted to provide mental health services. Big issue to underscore. RAP slots that are available aren't enough to cover all those kids in group homes, there are about 200 in the county, half of which of those kids are receiving mental health services, but there's an entire population of 2,000 kids that would need those services as well to stay out of those group homes. So those are the data points that I'll offer here. I apologize for going over on my time, but we appreciate your support. We'll be back to provide you with more updates on this as it rolls forward, but we respectfully request you reconsider those 2 items.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for being here on behalf of the coalition and certainly for spending time with us this morning and being the messenger. So we'll take this into account. So
it's a distinct pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Saunders, Jim.
Good afternoon, Board, and I'd like to thank the Chairman, Don Natoli. We talked on this subject before. It was about vouchers and homelessness. I also have a letter from my doctor I sent to Don Natoli's office, also CC to Paul Lake. The problem is that it states very clearly right here, this is the Office of the Public Defender. It talks about that I was in my home and I was home invaded and I was attacked. Not only did I speak to the Raymond Management River Oaks apartment about that prior to it, I had a problem with the same individual in 2012. I tried to, as I writ down in my request to speak, I tried to go there improper and get the documents. Back to the vouchers. I received a voucher July 26 around that time, and it lasted to August 2nd. I was told in the time that I would continue to have a voucher and some place to stay. That no longer exists. I'm back out on the streets, and I would like to have some place to stay so I can have stability. Prior to that, I had no problems. I paid my rent on time. I was not a problem. When there was a problem, I would inform the management. And I felt, though, when I went to River Oaks apartment, they had replaced back to the same person who told me that he's not there to babysit. I went through 5 different managements, and each one took people violating you very seriously, and they did something about it. Mr. Michael Peters did not. He told me I could not get any of my records, and I would like a full investigation by the county because that is a county place. It was a county deputy that arrested me instead of arresting the person who had 3 times the legal limit of alcohol and opiates in his system. I had nothing in my system, and I gave him a full report. I never received the body cam, but the bottom line, once again, is housing. And I need a place to stay immediately. And as it says on the second page, it says, explaining that your case was dismissed and you genuinely need a housing assistance. I went through different types of places to get that, and I have some figures for you very quickly. I went to self-help as they told me to at the Friendship Park. When I went to Friendship Park, they told me they had several homes for me for $550, $650, and some even cheaper than that. The prices were $1150, $940, and some places you could not contact. I did visit the place, meaning it was disconnected. When I visited the place, it was a drug place, drug addiction, thugged out neighborhood, and that is not what I'm about, period. And so I would love to have back that voucher and have stability.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, James. I know certainly you've been in contact with my office, and I think Mr. Lake, who's now president, has had some of his folks working on this, and obviously the voucher was only for a short period of time. So, again, I don't know, Mr. Gill, if you want to offer anything, again,
Just
Mr. Lake.
Continue working with Mr. Lake, see what we can do about this issue.
Okay, there may be some housing that we can assist him with. You're still living out of your vehicle? Is that
back and forth out of a broke down vehicle. I still pay insurance on it, so it won't be a problem. But I need to get assessed. Right, it's like paying rent. And then I would have brought more information with me to you, but it's in storage.
Okay.
And so I have a lot more to say.
Well, I know we forwarded your doctor's note, and I think Mr. Lake got that from my office. He left it upstairs.
Yes.
So let us continue to take a look at this, James. I think we know how to reach you, and as long as you answer your phone, I think we can keep that communication going. So.
I just would like to know some type of time period because I'm still on the streets, and the last time I've been off the streets was just 1 week, and then thrown back on the streets, and the weather is changing back.
Mr. Chair, if I could just suggest have Ms. Saunders work with Mr. Lake
Okay.
So you can come up with a timeline.
All right, Paul.
Okay.
Okay, and I think you've met Mr. Lake previously.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And
All
I'd
right.
like to thank him. He did help me
Okay. All right.
one time when I had to talk to the high official attorneys, public defenders. And that's why I got this letter that says that, hey, this guy did nothing wrong. The DA is more than happy, and we're glad that we dropped the charges. But to me, I'm the only one who suffered out of this. This guy should be arrested and put in jail, and that's why I asked for an investigation of River Oaks Apartment Raymond Management. And if
All right.
that could be done.
Okay, James. Well, Mr. Lake will work with you. Thank you again for being here, for your patience as well. So,
Right.
okay, that concludes. I didn't have
Thank
anything
all
else
of you.
off agenda this morning, this afternoon now. So we're scheduled to come back in at 2:15. So I think it'll be 45 minutes. So we will adjourn then until 2:15 and be back in session then. Thanks.
2:15, yeah. That's what the agenda said.
So what am I doing? Okay, so this